Hey, what is up, grappling fans? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Raph Esparza, coming to you with, yes, a very special fight companion for UFC 253. If you're tuning in, join us. Sit down. We're going to be discussing all of the things that are happening on our screens. If you're too poor to buy it, and listen, been there, been a college student, know those vibes. Don't worry. We're going to give you play-by-play during what is happening throughout these next fights for UFC 253. We cannot thank you enough for joining us right now. It is going to be a spectacular day for grappling and mixed martial arts. A few things to get out of the whole little scenario over this way. I want to first give a shout out to our friends over at Nogi BJJ Gear. Why? Because they make apparel like this. Check this out. Yo. Why talk about it? Be about it. You can buy one of those over at NogiBJJgear.com. Corona Weight Champ hashtag plus way more merchandise. Some good, some not so good. I'm not going to tell you which one's which. If you use the promotional code GRAPPLINGHOUR15, you take 15% off of whatever you put in the cart. Also give some love to our friends over at DodgyCollective.com. I don't know how excited you guys are about this main card. I definitely am excited for the main two fights. That is why I've enlisted the friends that we are going to be talking to right now. The first gentleman, this guy has been covering the SoCal scene with me for going on for what feels like years now, almost 4 or 5 years, something like that. This guy is literally putting on as many shows as we do. If you don't watch him, you're dumb. You should definitely subscribe to his channel. That is According to Woods 1. Adam Woods, hello and welcome back. Look at that. You got a fruit tart right there. Is that what you're drinking, sir?
Yes, it's a Golden Road Hard Seltzer fruit cart, and it is delicious, the mango flavor. But beautiful. I had to catch up with my man Roth here because, he doesn't stutter while he drinks, so I thought I would try and do the same.
I'm going to guarantee you it gets harder as we get closer to the end of the night. And sometimes by the very, very final fight, depending on the alcohol content of these beers, sometimes it definitely just turns me into a little bit more of Joe Rogan, Andrew Dice Clay. Whoa! And, it's not my preferred way of narrating things, but it is what it is. And let's welcome the host of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast, one of the co-hosts. The other one's okay. But this one, what do I tell you about him? Well, I guess I'm inviting him on because unlike Adam, who says very nice things about me that are very complimentary, this man does that but then says he wants to replace me. And I don't think that's humanly possible for number one reason, which is, have you seen the reporters in jiu-jitsu? There's no replacing what I do because there's nobody else doing it. So anyway, please welcome to the show, one Kevin Bradley. Kevin, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Raph. I'm doing really good. I'm really good. And you know what? You're not going to get me down right now. That's how good I feel right now. I'm in a good mental place. I went to my happy place, and that's where I'm going to stay for the remainder of my time on your show.
Well, you say that, but then let me say a few words about you in about 20 minutes, and then let's see where that is. Get to drink number 3, and then let's see what happens when Raph airs his grievances to all the people on the show. I'm not going to do Adam. Adam's way too complimentary of me that I'm like, I can't really give him shit. But I like the fact that after one of our broadcasts, Kevin literally told me, there was no facetiousness to it, where it was just like, hey, man, I really appreciate you. I've been a big fan for as long as I can remember, but I will replace you. And I was just like, from what? Like, really? You're going to try and replace me?
I mean, if I had to say, I would peg you as like the Walter Cronkite of jiu-jitsu coverage.
No, I'm not.
So, yeah.
No. I actually used to say our good friend Paul Moran, I think, was the closest that we had to the Edward R. Murrow of our sport. And I said that about him, and he said this very graciously about me. He said it. That's it. He would call me the Jon Stewart of our sport. And I always felt like that's a little closer. I will tell you this. Since Paul's passing, I have definitely felt a lot more responsibility in terms of trying to be at least a conscience every once in a while. But in a sport where there are very few actual reporters, I think it's all the more important that you have some variations of integrity or things that you stand for. So everything else is out the window. When we do dick jokes on Verbal Tap, that's just what we're going to do. So I don't know that Walter Cronkite ended up doing that and roasting most of his friends on air, but, I'm just going to fly by my own seat here.
I think he slipped a few dirty jokes into the JFK assassination reading, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah, I've been around for a bit here, kids. I was around for the JFK reading. And you know what's great about that reference? So many of the young people are going to be sticking around being like, I want to watch the fights with these guys. That's exactly who I'm coming here for. I love that style bender kid. So anyway, well, here's what I want to do. While we have a few minutes before they start it up, I'm going to go ahead and get the branding to figure out who voted, because it was a very close vote for this one. But I'd like you guys to get each other a little time to kind of talk to each other while I'm off air. So, gents, you have the floor. Get to know each other better as I go ahead and call up something on the shared screen.
So Kevin, how did you end up discovering the wild world of jiu-jitsu?
Well, it all started when I was almost kidnapped in high school, and that is not a joke, even a little bit. So, there was a kid. I think it was like part of a game or like a dare. He wanted to like try throwing me into the trunk of his car and driving away. And I was a frail little cross country runner at the time, like a newborn deer, like 100 pounds soaking wet, and I was not fast, so I was also a bad cross country runner. And he was a football player, and so he sort of cornered me in the locker room, and I ran outside, and he tackled me to the ground, and he started dragging me by the ankles towards his car. But luckily, my coach, Ed Berberich, was around. He was my cross-country coach, and he was a purple belt at the time. So he just jumped up and immediately sunk in the yard and got a body triangle to boot down. And he held on until he started to go out, and then he let him go, and he got away and started being mean and saying some nasty words to both of us. And I will never forget, I like helped Ed up, and I'm like, dude, you just saved me. And he grabbed me by both of my shoulders and shook me as hard as he could and said, tell me he was 18. I can't afford a lawsuit. And then we found out he was in fact 18, and he's like, thank God. And then like the color came back to his face. And that was the first time, yeah.
Fuck. That's tremendous.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think there's a better story.
You just get thrown into the deep end. That's how it happened.
Well, I'm glad that we have something that will not appear on a Dateline episode in the future. So that's good to start off where we're at right now.
I wanted to answer the question.
You did, and you know what? I applaud you for that. I just didn't expect that was your origin story. So, surprises to everybody here, kids. Here's the thing. I think we only have one of the fighters in the cage. So very quickly, Kevin, you have the opportunity to go and ask your question, sir.
All right, Adam. I feel like I want to know all about you, how you found your way to combat sports. But first, I would love for you to tell me your first encounter with Mr. Raf Esparza, if you can remember it.
The first encounter with Raf Esparza was actually at a EBI viewing party in Hollywood. And
love it.
It was me, and I had just come off of a shoot for Combate Americas with Marcos El Matador Bonilla, who now is one of the head hunters of Upgrade Marketing, Brian Ortega's management team and what have you.
Yeah.
But I got there, and I was friends with Donna Gonzalez and Becky Dominguez of the Matt Therapy podcast, and I was like, man, these two podcasts, like, I listen to, and they saved me from like a mediocrity in terms of like corporate life and whatever. And I'm here, and we took a picture, and I was just like, one day I'll be on their level. So I don't know if I'm there yet, but that's how I met Roth. I think we were watching. It was the one where the first iteration of EBI in Mexico, and we just started talking about wrestling. That's all we did for wrestling.
Yeah, and mind you, I had a friend who was on that, and I was watching him, and I definitely remembered seeing him competing. But if somebody starts asking me certain things about WrestleMania, I'll be like, oh, fuck my friend. Bro, my favorite WrestleMania moment is, and first of all, I did want to acknowledge this real quick, and I don't know, I'm going to put this full frame just so you guys can see it, and I'm going to take out the branding here. How have you guys not acknowledged this? Like, that's the thing. I've been so curious about this whole interview with like two people who are at least knowledgeable about this. How have we not acknowledged the shirt that I
It's a great wrestling shirt. I like what like am I supposed to act surprised like you have a good wrestling shirt?
I just want to go ahead and say it's usually easier for me when you guys prompt me to do it to be like, actually, I got it from nogibjjgear.com. If you use the code grappling hour 50, you get 15% off of whatever you put in the cart. And see how quickly I do it right before we even get to the fights. I'm just literally able to like boom, but I didn't get that setup from either of you two other podcasters who I guess apparently don't like money. So thank you both.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is Nogi BJJ funding the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast all of a sudden?
You're on my show right now.
Hang on. I'm gonna call Kev G because that's a business decision that I think I should have been made aware of at least. But you know,
I think you know damn well
promo code JJT for 20% off at BJJ.
I think you know damn well if I was on your show and you set me up a layup, I would make sure that you looked so solid with that finish, because I would be like, hey, listen, these guys, none of us make a ton of money from doing these shows because we're not the NBA. We're not the Major League Baseball. We are a weird niche sport. So if you ask me like, Ref, what's your favorite apparel? I'd be like, whatever you guys are sponsored by. Obviously. Do I get a promotional code or do I have to say yours? And I would do it because I'd be on your show. So that's all I'm asking for. Anyway, the fight's coming up right now, and I'm done scolding you. So I will tell you guys this. Look, before we even start, at the little bit of the preview that our fans came in at 52 to 48%. It is a close coin flip here. Gents, do you have any certain way you're feeling? I'll start with you, Adam.
You know what? This is pretty consistent with the Tapology kind of rankings that I saw earlier. But, I mean, I think it's kind of funny because Hakeem Dawodu and Zabira Tugahov, those are probably the hardest pronouncing names in UFC history. So, with that being said, I'm going with Zabira because that's just a harder pronouncing name. Just saying.
That's fair. Kevin?
I'm actually kind of familiar with Keem. I saw his last performance. I think it was at UFC 240 something. And I could talk about how I like his athleticism. I could talk about how I like his striking. But really, I just like the fact that he has the word mean tattooed on one of his pectoral muscles. And I'm just not about to bet against that guy. So for very superficial reasons, I will go with Hakeem.
I'm so glad that you
there is a base of legitimate appreciation for his talents, but really it begins and ends at mean.
I do appreciate the sound logic you were putting behind this. I mean, you can't go wrong with a tattoo that says mean. So you know there's that. And
what would be great is if he got a question mark actually right after mean, like maybe I'm mean, maybe I'm a nice guy. Buy me a drink and find out.
Of course, we're starting off where both gents are starting to feel each other out. I would ask this, though. So you said that you were familiar with him. What, if any, memories did you have of that performance where you saw him last?
I think I don't want to confuse it with his last performance or the one before that, but I remember his takedown defense being very, very solid. Okay. That was something that stood out to me. And I'm not sure if we're going to see a lot of takedowns this time around, just because I'm not super familiar with his opponent. But it's always good to see someone respecting the ground game, and keeping the fight where they're comfortable. So
I'll tell you guys this. Normally when we do the over-under segment, there's a little popularity thing that I like to do, which is I like to kind of mess up the names on purpose because some of them are wacky. And it's usually an opportunity to do some puns. But in this perfect opportunity, I finished recording the show. I looked back at the names, and Kevin was very entertained. He was like, dude, some of those pronouncements are amazing. But I had a moment of slight regret, and I don't have many on our show. But I looked at the name, and I said, how did I not pronounce him as Yabba Dabba Doo? And I just thought, what a fucking lost opportunity, Raph.
Agreed. But my goodness, what is this? The hairstyle rocked by Wonder Voodoo. It's almost like a Rich Swan kind of. It's just there. It's there. It's kind of frizzy. He almost looks like what is it? Sideshow Bob. That's the Simpsons reference.
It is.
I don't want much of a cartoon, but
it's perfectly acceptable on this show. When we get down to it, though, I think in between rounds, Kevin, you have surprised me with some of your wrestling acumen. So I will ask you, when we get in between the rounds here, to tell me where your backstory with pro wrestling begins, but not now. Just wait until we get to that minute. And Kevin, are you watching at all the Third Coast Grappling? Like, is that making your radar? Or are you watching that later this week?
I'm more interested in the Submission Underground coming up, just because one of my coworkers, Emil Fisher, is actually on the card. So shout out to him.
Is he really a coworker? Can you really call him a coworker when you've been essentially remote with him the entire time? Like,
not essentially. I've only personally met Avery. That is the only person that I work with. And Kim K. Those are the only two that I've ever actually met. But we've got a lot of writers all over the globe and whatnot. But I consider him a coworker. He probably considers me an annoyance at best. But
well, touche on both parts, because takes one to know one. I would tell you this about him. I refer to him as Jiu-Jitsu's Loki, because he tends to just try and instigate things. And I asked him about why, because he asked to be on my show. And I said, sure, come on, promote your event with Keith. And of course, Submission Underground. So I was very happy for him. But he was telling me, he's like, yeah, I love trolling comments. And I go, how do you have the time for that? I just don't. I don't understand how, if I see something that says 60 comments, that somebody looks at that and goes, ooh, a goodie, time to go and do that. And then he mentioned,
trove is mine.
And he mentioned, he just goes, yeah, he goes, I would love to have that as a profession. And I go, sure, but someone's paying you currently, and that's what you do with your time. So it's kind of like you are getting paid to troll. And he didn't quite understand what I was saying there. He was kind of like, who's going to give me that money? And I was like, if I were the IRS, I would look into giving your company a break, just so that they could be like, hey, listen, dude, we understand we've taken on this Emil Fisher guy, and he trolls a lot of people. I'm pretty sure Russia sees him and goes, our work here is done.
Emil Fisher, controlled opposition. I love it.
So, yes, he competed, though, against Keith Krikorian tonight. Did lose, I believe, in overtime, but apparently they had a pretty fun match. So,
it did happen. I wasn't sure. I've been traveling this weekend pretty extensively. I was not sure that I missed it. I'll probably have to read the breakdowns on it tomorrow. But
I'm sure you'll be okay. But that's just over at the Zapatero. Next week, he's going to be on Submission Underground. He'll make his debut on there. So very much looking forward to him competing and doing that sort of thing there. But anyway,
the Kumite as well, though, is looking incredibly stacked.
Yes, and I was very happy that they have an all-female Kumite, so very pleased to say that. I will remind people this. If you give us a like and a share on Facebook, we will give you a cheers on air, so don't think I forget that. I'm going to do a quick sweep just to make sure we're not forgetting anybody here, but make sure that if you want to get a toast, just like some of the fighters who have gotten finishes tonight, and there's been a couple, not the last few. The last one we had was the Dovit Klein, who made quick work out of Shane Young, who garnered attention yesterday by screaming very loudly and swatting Dana White's hand away.
Yeah, that was a bit weird to watch.
It makes for interesting bemused television for all of us, because all of us looked at it and go, well, that dude would be fired in normal circumstances.
Yeah, it's. I wonder what it's like.
Adam,
I wonder what it's like with having him as a boss.
I don't need to know that. Who knows? Maybe one day, they do a nice little thing where they go, Raph, we'd like to bring you in to work for the UFC. And I was like, should I tell you guys about what I've said about Dana in the past, or should you find it?
They bring you in as like a chairman, like a heel chairman.
I just like to be like, listen, dude, all I could say is this, is if they ever did bring me in, I'd be like, if you have an issue with it, then how am I ever going to work for Dana? Like, he clearly has said shit that he just gets away with, and I understand that. But, like, why wouldn't you want somebody who's honest and would tell you that's a fucking dumb idea? But if you want somebody else, then obviously take them. That would just be my one qualm. And here's the good news. If you guys ever hear me on a show, very quickly go, I think Dana White's never had a bad idea. I'm working for the UFC, and I'm getting paid lots of money.
That's to put it all in perspective, I think.
Now, listen, dude, if I'm selling out, it's going to be hard and for a lot of money. So until then, Dana White, you sometimes are, what is it? They always say, like, perspective is always like time away from an event plus emotional apathy. Like, Dana White's got to be that thing where it's like, to truly understand Dana White, it's usually time, perspective, and a lot of angry pink face, and you will 100% find your channel, Dana White.
Oh,
Adam, I want you to do me a solid. Can you walk me through some of the action that you've seen? We're in the second round of a fight that seems actually fairly matched, and I do want to compliment the striking of both gentlemen here, but I'd love to get your interpretation of what you are seeing happening before your eyes.
Yeah, so, I mean, Tugov in the first round was essentially punching the air really, really hard. And I was like, if one of these connects, this could end the fucking fight, right? So, but Dawodu kind of figured it out, and it was like, oh, wait, he's punching air. Let me just stay away from it, and let me implore some of my striking prowess to the matter at hand. And, I mean, so to it, we kind of saw a flurry of a bit of a grappling exchange towards the cage, but now they're, literally, towing the line, to kind of use a euphemism for BKFC, but towing the line right, well, on the monster logo. But then here we go, round they go. Dawodu almost essentially DDT'd Zabira, but Zabira, not with that shit. He's not going to be fucking Ricky Steamboat at Boston Gardens, not at all. He's like, nope, I'm going to just smother Dawodu in a way that would make any Canadian kind of weird and uncomfortable, and they hardly get uncomfortable. But
here's what I would tell you, though, real quick, Adam, is, when people ask me, they're like, where do you get your play-by-play, like, heroes from? Like, who do you look to when you're doing that for jiu-jitsu stuff? And I say, I don't look to jiu-jitsu people. I don't think they're good commentators. I look to pro wrestlers. Like, I would love to emulate when I'm doing my commentary. I don't think I'm going to be them. I'm not going to raise my voice like them. But the stories that they tell are far more compelling than anybody working in commentary and jiu-jitsu, because a lot of the times they're so boring. So I look at them, I was like, honestly, before I went to go do one of my first commentary gigs, they're like, who are you listening to right now? I go, Paul Heyman. Like, I want to listen to that guy tell me a story rather than, no offense, Al Teague telling me like, oh, this one's a really interesting match because they're both going to go out there and get it. It's like, sure, they're going to get it. Then the next competitor is going to go out there and want to get it. Like, tell me why this is compelling and why I want to invest my time. I'm going to ask this over to Kevin. On this particular area, did you just see a little bit of that grappling? Because I saw a little bit of the legs that he was starting to kind of grab and start to trifle there. Have you seen anything on the grappling side in this match thus far in, sir?
Well, he just did get taken down, but it seemed like he was able to work his composure pretty well. I've only ever really seen his takedown defense. I don't know how he is off the back, but it seemed like before things went to the ground, he was focusing more on the body shots. I think he had a pretty good right before he shot, and I'm seeing him use the kicks a little bit more too. So I feel like he's comfortable standing. I don't know where he is on the cards after that, but I'm still really pleased with what I'm seeing so far. I would love to see submission attempts, but you know, I'm a sucker for those. Oh,
I would tell you this right now. There seems to be a little bit of all over the place in terms of all of the tweets that they're putting up on the UFC bracket over here, where they're saying, I see it as 2018. I see it as 1919. I think they're kind of all over the place. So it may come down to some aggression here, but in the last 4 minutes, do you see this taking any lead? And what do you think somebody needs to do to really come across here? I'll ask that to Adam.
I think that Zabira really needs to stop connecting with the air so much as he needs to connect with the Wudhu's chin. He made some kind of iterations of such in the second round, but and I think the Wudhu, Hakeem definitely needs to finish the fight, because up to this point, if he wants to etch out a win, he's down 2 rounds to nothing, right? So I think he needs to finish here, but I don't know if he has trouble kind of scoring up his distance or what have you. And I mean, it's pretty late in the game to kind of figure out your striking distance. But he has essentially cracked open and drew color, to use a wrestling euphemism, on one Zabira. But it's anybody's game. But I think that Tukov is doing enough to kind of etch it out with a decision victory.
Yeah, see, there a little bit of that takedown defense that I was mentioning earlier, but it looks like the high crotch might get him.
Well, Tukov was just right now shooting in at minute 12 of a fight that just looks very taxing. Like, the ability to shoot in after 12 minutes of competing in mixed martial arts is a skill. So the fact that he has been so consistent on trying to get the single leg, and even though like this would be bad news for you, especially not having any part of that leg substantially, but just trying to make up for it with sheer force, like he is close to finishing that a number of times where he does a switch, he does get the back for a split second, pushes him off, and just thinking about how exhausting that is for most people, I just enjoy the fact that as they show that, you have Jim Rome, noted MMA fan, who writes, "Now that's how you fight at Fight Island," which I enjoy when civilians come in and kind of give us their interpretation of what's going on. But like retweeting tweets from Jim Rome is always like, okay, I would take him at just any other sport, but who cares what he thinks is going on right now?
Oh man, I feel like. Sorry, Adam.
Oh no. But it's weird that Jim Rome and Gordon Ramsay have opinions of what's going on UFC 253. I find it weird, but there's that.
Yo, you say that, but I would 100% watch a show with Gordon Ramsay shitting on people's techniques. And then especially, you know what? Oh my God, Gordon Ramsay talking about people's nutrition. Oh my God, I would watch that show.
Yes.
Eat some of the meal prep and just be like, this is the worst thing I've ever tasted in my life. And you just be like, this is so fun watching him shit on all the nutrition food they have to eat.
The fuck is this cardamom?
You fucking donkey. And you go, oh, yeah, that's a show on Fox that already has 1 season of 10 episodes right then and there. Oh, that's glorious. Yeah, you know, it's so funny. I like the fact that, Adam, you mentioned that, and just seeing it from the telecast made me go, I would work on that show.
Yeah, I think I just booked your entry to the UFC, Ralph.
I know.
You bitching that to Dana and crew? That's like, UFC Fight Pass exclusive gold.
Well, we've pitched a
saying.
couple shows. One of the shows that we really think that somebody should make is, they used to have like the People's Court. I think they still actually do on some shows syndicated, but you essentially have Fighters Court where you bring judges who have to justify their decisions for terrible fights. So you bring them in and go, the plaintiff here scored that a 29-28. In what world was that a 29-28? I'd like to bring several witnesses, including one of the fighters themselves, to talk about it.
Is the season? You know what? Is the season finale the John Jones's one loss? No, wait, that's a ref decision. That's not a judge's decision. So
well, listen, dude, that loss to me, like, it's so funny to look back when I was just like a fan who didn't think I would do any of this. It was just fun to watch those fights. So to me, I just remembered seeing that fight and watching it live and going, oh, John Jones, man, oh, that's really rough. And then all of a sudden, now that it's all these years later, going, can we just expunge that? Is that really what we need to do? We have a quote here, or a question from Jose Mendez, who says, has the fight started yet? My question to you, Jose, which fight? There's been one fight that has started, and that was Hakeem versus Zabria. And I don't know that's what you're tuning in for, but if you have a specific fight that you were looking for, please let us know in the comment section, and we will answer that question for you.
I might have an answer potentially for Mr. Jose, but it does get a little bit metaphysical because many scholars believe that the true fighting started when, blood was drawn between Cain and Abel, the first murder, that was when humanity learned to be violent towards one another, and our bonds of brotherhood were starting to separate and expand over time. But I think really it's when we learned to wield tools that we started to really learn violence. So Jose, that's like a bit more than you were thinking of. But I think the real question is, has the fight ended yet? And I don't think it has.
Well, after that answer, I don't know any of us can really follow anything. But I'm so glad you stalled for long enough for Bruce Buffer to read the decision, which is Hakeem Dawodu gets the win, everybody, by a split decision. I'll give you a recap. Now, Adam, why do you think he ended up winning the decision?
I have no fucking idea, honestly. I mean, there was obviously the strike count was, in favor of Dawodu and what have you. But I mean, I don't think there was, to me, Zabara's, shots to the chin, you could see kind of put Hakeem in a place of just like, oh fuck, I better do something quick, So I don't know, I don't know. But in regards to that show, in terms of bringing judges in, I want to fucking have a chat with one Adelaide Bird of the Nevada State Athletic Commission and see what the fuck, and just go down just like the shit decisions she's kind of made. Which makes it probably not going to happen at all. But just go down the list. What'd you think here? What'd you think here? What'd you think here? What were your thoughts? What is your jiu-jitsu prowess? How many boxing, exhibitions have you been in, mademoiselle? And that's that. But yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you a quick summarization. It says, Uncle got a haircut. Looking good, Raph Esparza. Thank you very much. I look like a regular human being again. Or as my wife said, you look like you. So that was nice to come in. Though she and I both agreed, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier, no offense to the person who cut my hair. It's better. It's just not the best haircut I've ever gotten. It was just... at the end of it, I looked at him and I said, just make me look normal. And I kind of gave him a base. And all things considered, for a head as big as mine, it worked out just fine. Now, I'm going to give you guys a summarization of what Hakeem was saying in his post-fight presser right now, or at least his post-fight interview with John Anik. Number one, he said that black people have been held down for too long, and he's very sorry he could only bring one flag. He wanted to bring in more. Totally understandable. That's a really tough thing. He then, after that, mentioned that he won't kneel because they have been kneeling for too long. So it seemed like a very politically charged one. And he did mention that he's on a fight win streak right now, and that is true. That is something that is happening. So in case you were wondering what he was talking about, there you have it. Dane Donovan, you also follow that up by saying, let's go Reyes and Ricky Martin. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of who you are actually saying, let's interpret what you're saying. Dom Reyes, easy to understand. Ricky Martin would probably be Paulo Costa, so there's that, which means that you're not rooting for more different Grace Jones, and I don't know that you fit on this show. So anyway, thank you very much for that, Dane Donovan. All right. Now, I did promise the people that we would ask where the pro wrestling beginnings happened for young Kevin Bradley. Kevin, when did you first become a fan?
Well, I first really fell in love with wrestling when one Roman Reigns buried The Undertaker. You know, that was when I really saw how much this art form could really be pushed. And so far, it hasn't been topped. Now, as for a real answer, I got into it in college. I had a buddy named Taekwon who's actually acting now in LA, and he would come over to my dorm and sort of we would talk about MMA, and he asked if I ever got into wrestling. I said no. So he took me through some of the older WrestleManias, like WrestleMania 10, WrestleMania 1. Like it's like scattershot. So I sort of through osmosis and like YouTube videos got a loose history of like the Montreal Screwjob and like the Monday Night Wars and like the greatest hits of like what you need to know to get by in a conversation. And then I took a bit of a hiatus, you know, after college, but then AEW came out and I started sort of becoming interested again. And now I'm a casual wrestling fan. Like I'll keep apprised of the goings on every now and again.
Because the reason I ask is I think I saw something on AEW and I saw that you liked it, and I go, huh? Where did this come from? And you know, it usually tells you like your top friends who enjoy those things. I just go, when was the kid a fan? I mean, I kind of know he made a couple references, but I didn't check them. So I'm just saying, there is that. Adam, do you have a question for him to test his true knowledge here? Because Adam is a true super fan and has interviewed a number of people who are prominent wrestlers.
Oh,
so
boy.
Yes. Kevin, so what was your favorite match of WrestleMania 10? And why do you think that might have been one of the top 5 WrestleManias of all time?
Now, I'm fuzzy just because I remember that being one of the first ones I watched, but I've watched a lot of the main events sort of on YouTube in like a dorm room, so I never watched the full events from start to finish. Was that the one where The Rock and Steve Austin had a double heel face turn thing at the end, or I'm triggering you by how wrong I am? I'm very sorry about that.
No worries. No, that's actually WrestleMania 10 is my favorite WrestleMania because it told a consistent storyline throughout, and that was the first match being Bret Hart versus his younger brother Owen winning kind of by devious means via a victory roll into just sitting down and catching his brother. His brother goes into fight in the mid card, Lex Luger, which Lex Luger and Bret Hart respectively had this weird kind of deal where they hit the Royal Rumble. They got eliminated at the same time. So, so that happened. And then Lex getting bested by Bret, going on to face Yokozuna in the main event. And then basically Bret beats Yoko. All the baby faces hoist Bret in the air. And out from the aisleway comes Owen. And basically, there's this point where like maybe he's going to make amends with his brother. And then he just like, Mah! And that sets a tone because you go like, oh man, Owen beat Bret and Bret's champion. Owen could be champion. And it set off like the next year's worth of storyline between Owen and Bret, and including Bob Backlund and what have you. The Austin Rock didn't come until, I want to say, this had to be probably about WrestleMania 18 in Seattle, which ended up being Austin's last match.
Real quick before Raph tears into me for my failure, the only image of Lex Luger in my head that actually sticks, because I've seen a lot of his matches. I'm aware of him, but all I can think about is him on a battleship, just oiled up and flexing with like jets flying overhead, and it's just got an American flag. I think he's got an American flag.
I believe you're referring to the Lex Express, which then led to him body slamming Yokozuna on Battleship, which, by the way, when we talk about why can't Lex Luger walk anymore, that might be a contributing factor, including the fact that his finishing move was literally hoisting people on his shoulders. And I would always think to myself, that's not bad if it's Sting, but if it's the Big Show, we don't need to do this. This seems like an unnecessary thing. So when that man is on a cane and barely able to walk, I go, well, I can't say it was unexpected. So very nice. I'm glad that you were able to talk about that. That is a great moment between those two matches. Of course, the Hart family, near and dear to both myself and Adam here. But I am glad that you were able to answer that, because if you didn't have a proper answer, I was going to be like, you got to get out of here, man. I'm not having you on the show anymore. It was a good novelty until then. But like I said, there was a sincere amount of, I didn't know he was a fan. And it does make sense that I would make certain references if you kind of get them. But we just kind of always assume in grappling, there are a lot of guys who enjoyed pro wrestling growing up. They just kind of like never talked about it. But my God, if one of the guys starts mentioning it around me, they don't shut up. And I'm like, I'm the bigger fan, but y'all are just telling me. I had one of my friends who's a fighter, by the way. He hit me up in like the DMs, and he was like, dude, after we talked about it one day, he was like, dude, look at this. Here's my ticket to SummerSlam back in 2012. Here's my rare copy of ECW. Here's my this. And I was like, oh shit, bro. I just literally told you that like I liked ECW when I was growing up as a kid. I got all these notes that just totally made him go, hey man, you're a friend. I'm so glad that you know this. I was like, yeah, I know all those moments too. So it is a very shorthand language that gets spoken to only the coolest people, though.
Yeah, no, 100%. My longest podcast to date, and this is fun because of this. So one of the reasons why I started doing this was not just Roth, not just Donna and Becky, but I mean, the Mean Gene Okerlunds, the Paul Heyman, the Joey Styles, and yes, the Chris Klosses of XPW. And it's weird because I grew up as a fan here in LA, growing up with XPW as our kind of homegrown ECW spinoff, and I would watch Chris Kloss and Larry Rivera talk about stuff from the Grand Olympic Auditorium or various the LA Sports Arena. So my longest podcast was with the one and only Chris Kloss of XPW and Pro Wrestling Society X fame, and we went down a wormhole. Again, this happened I think we started at 11:30, finished up about 3:30, and then talked for another hour off air until about 5. So I can go deep in the weeds.
I've had to maintain a somewhat like I definitely, every time I find myself in a conversation where I'm able to like connect the dots, and I see how excited people get when they find another person that's into it, I definitely want to delve deeper. And I actually, one of my old training buddies, one Matt Ratcliffe, is actually a pretty big indie wrestler up in the Northeast in Buffalo, and talking to like the indie guys, those are like encyclopedias. Like they know everything and they can tell you anything just fired off at the hip. Like, and it's insane. It's so much information. And I always feel like whenever I do talk to some of my more stingy jiu-jitsu friends about like pro wrestling, they get very defensive. They're like, this is bullshit. It's not legit. And I'm like, I see a lot of the same moves. I see a lot of the same transitions. I think it's just it's a theatrical experience. You go there for different things. And honestly, I would a lot of times rather watch a random wrestling match than a high-level jiu-jitsu competition.
Uh-oh. That's going to end your term as the host of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast.
Hey, no. As long as Kev G is in my corner, I feel like I should be fine.
This is going to be a rough fall from grace for you, sir. I like the idea that you're
no, my fall from grace from the jiu-jitsu media community.
Yeah, I just like the
Icarus did not know such hubris. Yeah.
I just like the idea that they're going to listen to this and they're going to go, so you had the choice between ADCC finals and WrestleMania 17, and you chose WrestleMania 17. And I think it'll be very telling for people when you go, yeah, I know, that's a very easy pick. So, they're just that. I would just tell you, I think what the funny part to me is, I always look at things from a production standpoint, and we're always trying to emulate the theatricality without the actual budget or the know-how. So a lot of times when we see like ADCC and they're like, oh, this production is going to blow your mind. I was like, no, it's not. Literally, WWE has fans in a giant Thunderdome that they have replicated everywhere. We can't even get 2 cardboard cutouts in an audience member at Beijing. So y'all can chill. Like, the production value is going to take years and years and years for us to get there. So even when I look at it, I just always think just whatever we do, just try not to look too amateurish. Just go out there, produce a good content, just show a good match.
I'm sorry, Raph, but BJJ Stars has entered the chat and they would like to talk to you about samurai warriors and sumo wrestlers.
Yeah, they would have a lot to say to me, I'm sure. And I'm also sure that there are a number of promoters who always talk about it, and they're always like, no, we do a great production. And I go, you do an okay production. Just don't advertise it as anything more than it is. Don't overrepresent it. And go out there, shoot for the stars. Invest in good cameras. That's usually the biggest tip-off that I see for a number of people who put together grappling events. We did have a few comments, so I'll go ahead and put a few notes here. And this is from Raul Rodriguez, who writes, Reyes and Adesanya. This is a good time to remind you guys, if you give us a like and a share, we will give you a toast on air. Those aren't two bad picks. Those are my 2 people who I'm rooting for tonight. So I will tell you that. Then it says Dane Donovan, who I think might have taken some time to write a few things about pro wrestling, says essentially the opening lines from Hulk Hogan's theme song, which sure. And then says the 1-2-3 Kid is a crackhead, which I think is actually technically true, but he's tried to clean himself up here. Dane Donovan also wrote, you mean the Golden Nugget, which is a form of referring to Owen Hart that, yes, that did happen there. So I'm sure we were able to catch up on all of those things and much more, where you end by saying Hulk Hogan taught us what it was like to be American. Absolutely. Which is always very funny to explain to the kids who only know him as a racist guy who the WWE kicked out of the Hall of Fame for a few years. So, the hard part is I always look at these guys and I go, what's their intent? Do you think that Hulk Hogan has malicious intent? Did he say something incredibly stupid? Absolutely. Did he deserve some things that happened to him? Yeah. Does he not deserve to be part of the WWE history? Not really, man. He really was part of it. He made people really believe, to say your prayers and eat your vitamins, all that bullshit. So he definitely was a force, and it's part of the reason why it broke through and why you look at the production value for the UFC, and they've copied it. Even tonight at Fight Island, the lighting that they have in the background of the octagon with the different colors, that's a very good production thing that they've done on this one. I have to give them a lot of credit on that. It's a very subtle touch, but it adds the element of almost being in a fancy limousine, that they added some fucking nice little night lights in there, and you go, ooh, look at this. They get some orange in there. They're really classing this place up.
I understand. Oh, sorry. I understand we were just talking about Hulk Hogan, but I want you to know after this, I'm going to go to sleep with the game playing at full volume on my AirPods, and it's going to feel great.
And what do you have to say, Adam, before we start talking a little bit about the match?
And shout out to Jason Herzog, one of the best in the biz. But the UFC has essentially made it so that it doesn't matter where they are in the world, no matter what the locale, it looks the exact same. they're on Fight Island near a palm tree, like a plastic palm tree in the background. So they haven't taken that away from Vince.
Yeah, I don't think Vince really sweats much of the UFC, even though the UFC has definitely made more money in pay-per-view now. I don't know if it's a comprehensive, but I mean they've had a number of million plus sellers over the years, and all things considered, I mean the WWE was the first one to really do a network that's digital output, whereas I think the UFC has been struggling to figure out something where at the very beginning they go, are we going to do Fight Pass? No. Are we going to do ESPN Plus? Cool. What's going to go on Fight Pass? We don't know.
Bruce Lee documentary.
I mean, listen, that's nice, dude. But whenever you look at it and you go, but for real, why am I keeping my UFC Fight Pass? And I do it because I'm pot committed with grapplers. So you got Submission Underground that I definitely have to watch. You've definitely got, like, they've promoted EBI and Combat Jiu-Jitsu. But in terms of the prelims, they all pretty much air on ESPN Plus. So it begs the question, a lot of us are paying good money to support grappling when they don't have grappling events every month. Like, Chael's working his ass off, and I know there's a Polaris tomorrow. I don't even know if it's live, honestly. The last one was tape delayed, and I only found that out, I guess, day of. So I guess that's important to know. Also, Dane Donovan comments, and it says, I know his 60-year-old wife thought it was a good idea to have sex with 20-year-olds. Sure. I mean, Linda went to go have some sex with some, kids. He was a 20-year-old. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think you're going to get with Hulk Hogan's wife? Like, what do you think that she is going to do when she stops being married to the Hulkster? Like, and to me, I still don't even know, because when I would watch those shows, I'd be like, do they call him Hulk or Terry?
Hulk. It's always Hulk. Always Hulk. That dude is always.
My wife just told me off air, she goes, it's Terry, except for the fact that our guest is saying, no, it's always Hulk. So I would tell you guys both. Well, my wife is now trying to interject here with her years of watching reality series. You don't have to go with the wife. I'm just telling you, it's absurd either way because they're divorced. So it's not like they see each other other than hearings. Meanwhile, this fight is a little tepid to begin with. We have 126 left to go in this. And it says, Dane Donovan, half of Hulk's money went to some 20-year-old kid who never had to face The Undertaker.
Dane is the MVP. Holy hell. That's great.
Yeah.
So great.
Can I pin that comment somewhere? I'm gonna have to go back on our Facebook and pin that as the comment you see when you see this broadcast.
I think that eclipses comment status. I just want that on a shirt or a sign. That's a great sign for WrestleMania, right?
I don't know if you knew this, but at the very beginning, when they were doing all the Corona memes, one of the first one was like, for not wearing a mask, and it's Teddy Long. It goes, you're going one-on-one with The Undertaker tonight. And it's like, that to me is still so fucking funny that it became so funny to them in the backstage that they go, you know what, we just got to run with this. Keep having him say it, to the point where we, the fans, when we show up at a live event, we go, yeah, I want to chant that with them. That's fucking hilarious. So thank you very much, Dane. You know what, I'm going to put it up one more time. Just the idea of facing the Undertaker still makes me laugh. All right, we get a takedown at the very end here, and this is from Vieira, and Eubanks is doing a decent enough of a guard here where they're going to go ahead and stop them. They'll return in the second round in just a few seconds. So I think it's kind of the mulligan first round. I didn't really see anything super impressive. There's been a lot of notes from people, and I'll see if you guys agree with this. When I gauged their interest in UFC 253, which, by the way, again, pay-per-view, the common consensus was very excited about the main two fights. Everything else, Kevin, where did you fall? If you had the open ability to pay the amount that you think is appropriate for this UFC, what would that price have been?
I'd still pay full price.
That's
I look, no,
off the show. You're gonna pay full. Who the hell's gonna pay full price? They're not your best friend's business that you're trying to endorse here. Like, you pay full price when you have a friend that says, "Hey, listen, I have a new business. I'll pay for that." If it's anybody else, you say, "What's the rate you're going to charge me?" Which is international code for "I don't know you." Adam, I'll ask you, how much would you have paid for this pay-per-view?
The exact price that I'm paying for Josh Barnett's Bloodsport on October 11th on Fight TV, that is $19.99.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's it. Because $10 per fight of the main card, right? The co and the main event, $10 a piece. I think that's more than fair.
Okay. Kevin, would you like to go ahead and continue on as to why you would pay full price for this?
Real quick, I just want to say that you wield your power over the chat a lot more than I do when I am conducting the Jiu-Jitsu Times radio show. But my mind immediately, I'm sappy in where I'm coming from this. I'm aware of how many UFC fighters are living below the poverty line, and I know that contributing to the juggernaut system of the UFC doesn't necessarily is not going to inspire any change whatsoever. But as things stand, I'm not about to tell somebody who I go in not knowing much about them, but I could leave thinking, oh my God, that was a come out of nowhere knockdown, drag out, brawl, and or highly technical submission battle. You're paying for the chance. It's a lottery. It could be a stacked card on paper. How many people were thinking Israel Romero was going to be the greatest fight in history, and it ended up being an absolute bomb? You never know how these things are going to go. So you're paying for the opportunity. You're paying for the chance. You're taking a chance. And I think that any card is basically worth the same in that regard. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, I hear you. I'm going to ask you to tell me 3 significant things that have happened in this fight that you think, all things considered, have been phenomenal.
Diego Sanchez did not announce his retirement.
This fight, not earlier. I'm talking Vieira and Eubanks happening right in front of our eyes. Go.
That was a great jab. A bunch of great jabs. There were more than 3 jabs. I'll say those cobbled together. Please don't boot me again. All right, man. I'm trying to speak in the Mac. Look, you're asking me to comment on a very large situation while an underwhelming fight that still got a few minutes left is going on, and I don't know if that's necessarily fair. All right.
This fight can really turn it around, man. You don't know. Just let him have a chance, man. Okay. Again, Eubanks recently fought, and Dan was signaling this earlier in our betting segment, and he said, I just don't like the fact that it's too close of a turnaround for this particular fighter. And he is 100% correct on that. What I would tell you is this. I think that you have to structure the way that you see these fights and think, I don't know. I mean, as a consumer, I should be able to give them feedback. I'm very excited about this card. I'm not very excited about that card. So that's usually why we ask this question. Last week, they had a great precursor that said, oh my God, are you excited for last week's card with Donald Cerrone? And of course, you've got, oh my God, look, Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley. Look at these people. You're going to love watching them battle it out. Meanwhile, this one, I'm like, I've seen 7 minutes plus of this fight, and it's not technically bad, but I don't feel a certain way. And normally I like narrating it, and I'm just kind of sitting here going like, okay. And it's no disrespect respect to the ladies. It's just kind of maybe they're so evenly matched that you go, it's okay. So anyway, that's just my contention in terms of setting a price point and saying like, I wish it would be more fun. I wish we could get it here. So anyway, Adam, you answered it nicely. I appreciate you also gave a plug to Bloodsport, which I didn't sanction because I'm like, bro, I'm not getting paid by the War Master here. War Master's working on a budget himself. So I appreciate you for doing that because you have all those guests on your show. Anyway, Kevin, I'm going to give you another opportunity right now. There's going to be a third round coming in. What do you think you would like to see in this third round from either of the fighters involved?
I think it was previously stated by a lot of commentators, and I think one of the tweets that went up that both women here are highly technical on the ground. I'd love to see more exchanges there, more willingness. There was a trip from Vieira, I believe, that looked really, really clean earlier in the fight. Just more ground exchanges or just ground and pound. You don't need to be incredibly technical. You're not looking for super sweet guard passes on the ground. Like when we had Joe Lozon on, he said, if I get into someone's guard in an MMA fight, I am not trying to pass. I'm just trying to bludgeon them to death from inside the guard. And if the pass happens, okay. So I would love to see them open up a little bit more with submissions.
Let's go back to this right now. We go into the third and final round of Eubanks and Vieira. It could be a close fight. Hard to say. And now that we're starting to come in, both ladies, I can tell at a certain point, they have this look in their eyes where they're like, yeah, I better win this round because I need to win this fight.
Yeah, you know what? I thought the jiu-jitsu prowess of Sijara Eubanks, her being a black belt under the great and I think underrated Lloyd Irvin, I thought that would come into play. But, look how lanky that Vieira is. It's hard to get range, and she's just as adept in both striking and her grappling prowess. So, yeah, Sijara's having a hard time. But, Sijara coming off, she almost had a 50-50 record. And, coming off a big win of Julia Avila. I picked her to win. But, I don't think I think it might be too quick of a turnaround for her to make any sort of action one way or another. I don't know.
So I'm not sure if I ended up putting the poll result for this one. Let me see if I can pull it up. I don't think I did because the photo was too funny to just ignore. But Vieira was going for the fist pound, and Dana White ended up giving her the bump because Eubanks was already off the stage when it happened. It was one of the funnier moments that was lighter, that didn't involve swatting Dana White's hand away while also performing a haka. So, it's a nice little thing. And I just love the fact that you don't see this too often from the boss. But look at his face where he's just kind of like, oh, shit, I feel bad for her. No. So, there's that. I would also tell you that on the most recent episode of Verbal Tap, Kevin took on, in the most recent installment of Over Under, Kevin, our good friend, Derek Garza, who threw this photo together. I said he's very talented as an artist, and I would love to get your opinions on this artwork because I think it's actually super cool. And it's always interesting to see how artists interpret certain events or things, but look at this interpretation.
Ah, that's great. I love it so much.
I'm going to have to ask him if I can put that on next week's episode as our hard work, because I can't stop laughing at it. I've stared at it for literally like 5 to 10 minutes as I was waiting to bring it on. And I go, do I wait till the end of the show? And I was like, no, I think it's so funny to see right there.
I believe that is it's perfect. They've just the essence is very distilled. This is very much what we're going to be seeing. I would say that I believe Mr. Costa is a few shades darker, but that aside, that is that's so perfect. That's just so great. I would watch a cartoon featuring these guys going on adventures every day.
Agreed.
So
like Woody and Buzz.
Yeah. Yeah.
it is very similar to it. The body types are right there. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a snake in my boot.
I just know that when I bring Derek on next week, I'm just going to be like, what made you do that? And then why do we need to thank you? And where can we Venmo you money for how good it is?
How did you steal their soul? How did you steal their soul and put it onto a piece of paper, man?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ralph was talking about or one of you guys were talking about the shading of Paulo Costa, right?
Yeah.
And I'd like to point out that in Ralph's kind of Hogan and Rock kind of reenactment on his shirt, they are pretty much the same color tone, which I think is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Hulkster was pretty bronze during that time period.
Yes, it was.
I don't know much, but that looks about right. He was.
So here's what I can tell you. Hold up. Is she leg lacing over here right now?
Oh,
She's
wow.
trying to get a knee bar here. That's a move out of a playbook I'd like to say that I'm good at, but I don't necessarily invert like that to get a knee bar. Here's what I would tell you, kids. So I don't get a ton of time to always interact with our sponsors, but when they sent me the proof for the shirt, they go, what do you think? And I go, here's some corrections I would make. They go, awesome. It came to me without any of the corrections. And I just go, sure, why not? Just send it to me. So there's not going to be anything else. I'm going to tell you what to do. Also, it's your money and you sent it to me. So, I'm just letting you know, because I remember telling them, I was like, I think the solarization could be toned down a bit. And they're like, absolutely. And then I look at it and I go, it's still, you know what? It's cool. I'm going to be on internet television. And half the time on internet television, it looks way different than it does here than it does in person. But I will say,
so are Hulk Hogan's views, but yeah, well,
I'd love to see, like, you've really crossed a bridge when you get to the point. I'll look at that in a second. I know that you can cross a bridge when you see Hulk Hogan give feedback to like a Black Lives Matter movement and being like, who booked this? No, we don't need to do that. We're good.
Well, what about the mea culpa after him? I mean that the audio that got released and his mea culpa to like the New Day and Mark Henry going like, "Hey, I'm not really sorry that I said it, but I'm sorry I got caught, and I'm the real American hero. Fight for the rights of every man until it's not."
I mean, it's so funny when people's first defense is like, well, what do you guys say in private? I go, not that. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but really doesn't cross my at-home discussions. That's why I always tell people, when they always make the jokes, they're like, oh man, you're an FBI agent in every home. They must see some funny shit. And I was like, no, they're just bored. Because at a certain point, they have to look at my Google search of grappling events and be like, bro, it's not that exciting. Like, I watched a few of these. Wasn't a fan of that one. And be like, well, here's where we are, guys. This is what we do week in and week out. So anyway, I'm going to give Kevin, now you get the opportunity to ask Adam a question about his fandom. And I think this could be very helpful to you to understand better a little bit of something that you have some knowledge in, and you had a roommate who definitely was a fan and gave you that knowledge. But I would love to hear you ask him a question that maybe gives you a little bit more insight as to why so many people love it.
Okay, all right, when you think of What's a good question? Who's the first wrestler that comes to mind when the term wrestler is presented to you?
Bret the Hitman Hart, no question.
Okay. Now, how much of when you think about what an ideal wrestler is, how much of it is athleticism, how much of it is moveset, and how much of it is personality? Like, there's a pie chart.
I mean, you know what? I would do like personality 20, athleticism. What is it? So we've got 20, so 40% athleticism, 40% moveset, right? Because Bret Hart wasn't the greatest talker. I mean, the reason why he wore the shades to the ring that ended up being part of his gimmick was he was on, I think it was like primetime wrestling, and he was trying to cover a promo, and his eyes were darting, on because he was nervous, right? So they were like, "Hey, grab your shades," and that's that. So he didn't have a whole lot of personality, but like the persona of Bret Hart, right? And every time that the commentators, would see him come down to the ring, into the squared circle, they talk about his family lineage, his dad Stu, who was an ardent catch wrestler in the Western prairies of Canada, that were doing very similar moves than to what we know as jiu-jitsu now, right? The knee bars, arm bars, the double wrist locks and such. And Stu would be one. Yes, Bret was awesome, so was Owen, but Stu, the father, he had all like 12 kids, all of the girls married wrestlers, all of the boys became wrestlers to some ilk, and Stu could actually, and it's not PETA friendly now, but there was one time of the year at the Calgary Stampede where he would wrestle a bear and choke the bear out. So, Spider-Man and Batman and Looney Tunes, that took a backseat to my pro wrestling fandom because, again, I wanted to be the dude who was born just like any other dude that can choke out a bear.
I have one last question, like for this little segment, and I hope we'll be able to do more. But a big thing is if someone's not over. From my understanding, a typical crowd move is if X person wins, we riot. If Cena wins, we riot. If Roman wins, we riot. Who is your wrestler that if X wins, Adam's gonna riot?
I would have to. That would be. I would actually say Harley Race. Harley Race would, knock out dudes to an umpteenth degree. And there was a story of this guy in like Skidmore, Missouri, who used to like take people's social security checks, right? And when Harley Race found out about it, and Harley Race was 16, his parents and family left to, other places to go and farm and whatever. And Harley Race was left by himself at 16 years old to, basically keep up his house and whatever. But he heard of the Skidmore bully, and he went out and punched him. One punch knockout. And that was Harley Race at 16. So if I had anybody, past or present, to take into a damn gun, in the trenches, I would say Harley Race would be it. No question.
Oh, man. Well, shit.
I do like the fact that you're like, I did not expect to hear that. Harley Race stories are some of the best. One of our friends, Travis Conley, actually was trained underneath him as one of the last students. And he had Harley Race stories for days. And I was like, we're just scratching the surface on these types of stories. So many of these guys have been around forever, interacted with him, and had stories upon stories. Whereas when I would see him on WCW, I'd go, oh, okay, he's one of those old dudes. Like, I didn't know the stories behind it until you get to talk to the people or you listen to more media or interviews where you go, oh, that dude was like pretty legit and for real, like in an event or a spectator event where people go, that's put on. And then all of a sudden you hear his stories and I go, I don't know how put on that was. I don't know if anybody explained to him it was something there. So
I'd be like, it feels like with wrestling in particular, every aspect that like of other industries is typically benign, always has an element of it's got to get wrapped up in the theater of it all, like at every level. I don't know if you guys have Netflix, but there's this series called The Toys That Made Us, and they have, and then like basically it's a documentary series that goes over like the old toys of the 70s and 80s and how the brands have evolved, like He-Man, Star Wars, Lego. And there's an entire episode on the wrestling toys, like of all like the history, kit and caboodle of wrestling toys from when there were territories in the United States and like different brands, and then when they got gobbled up by WWE, and like how the rights got distributed and how people got the rights. People outright lied to get the rights. Like it's crazy stuff that you're just like, that's a crime, and you're laughing about it. People would like, that would be a front page story. You'd get sued for millions of dollars, and you're just like, oh, it's just another tale from the road. And I'm just like, what the fuck? I highly recommend checking it out.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen it, but I mean, you could thank pro wrestling for Simon Cowell, because if he hadn't got the rights and acquired the rights to WCW theme songs and producing that and distributing that, I mean, that essentially, he had his own record company and record label and what have you, but that went like belly up fucking apeshit that he had to move in with his parents and live in his parents' basement, which may or may not be the situations of most pro wrestling fans, but I digress. But even still, you know, his kind of canary in the coal mine was essentially getting the rights to produce like a WCW compilation theme song album. And that was essentially what got him to what we now know him as this kind of multimedia impresario.
So without WCW, we don't get One Direction. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, 100%.
Wow.
You could thank Goldberg for One Direction and Leona Lewis.
The butterfly effect is a truly miraculous thing. And the fact that wrestling is some tangentially become involved in the United States presidency is also just bizarre. Like those clips of Donald Trump's body slamming Vince McMahon, who is even crazier than he is. Like he's a whole nother level of bag of cat crazy. Like I've never been more enamored with a supervillain than, like, we like to talk about Dana and he's like the villain of the story. Like, yeah, no, this is like Vince is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I mean that is the mold in which Dana White kind of fell into. And I mean, Dana, if you ask him about Vince, he'll tell you. I mean, the dude doesn't sleep. I mean, Dana, if not for Meniere's, fucking him up in his kind of early iterations of, being presidents and what of the UFC, I mean, he would very much be Vince McMahon of the UFC, and he kind of is, because I think it's awesome that one of the cut men for this fight between Qatar France and Brandon Royval, his name is Geely. Like it literally says Geely on the back. But I digress.
So, Adam, real quick, I don't know what's going on with your audio. I don't know if a plug happened on your side, but I was just starting to get you a little muted or a little bit lower in sound. So just double check that real quick if you wouldn't mind.
Cool. Does that work?
It's really low. It's significantly lower than where you were just like a minute ago.
Is there a Bluetooth that you connected to or something?
Let me leave and then I'm gonna jump back in. How about that?
Spoken like a true host. We'll see you in a second. All of us who do the shows on StreamYard all know the magic trick of, well, if you just leave the room and then come back in, see what happens. because I cannot tell you how many people have, while doing an interview, go, I can't. And I'm like, leave, just fucking leave and come back in. Just don't. We're live, so
I understand that we often interview people that have such packed schedules, but the number of times I've seen someone answer the phone in the car, and I just realized nothing I do is going to make this sound better, so I'm going to have to go in to like iMovie, which yes, I use iMovie because I'm a broke joke, and I have to like cut their specific like talking and raise their audio manually, and there's like hundreds of cuts by the end of it.
Yeah, if I get out and I only have to do 2 cuts if I try to post it somewhere else, I consider that a good day at the office. It is so time consuming to do all those things that really all I want to do is get the file and go boop, and that would be great, but it's so funny, man. All right, we're in this. I see right over here Joffrey was saying I like Kai Kara France in this, and it says, let's go France. I'm going to go ahead and give up a little bit of information here from the folks who are watching along with us. We actually had a survey result that I want to go ahead and share with you guys as we are watching it unfold. And just the aggressor here, look at Royval, who left himself open with a kick, and he is staggering right now. But both of them kind of stagger, and I think he might have hit an illegal knee here. Comes in with a rubber guard, is trying to hit almost a go-go clinch here. That's a very impressive move to be hitting here. Not only does it have good like mechanics to it, but it just looks like it is really, really annoying the shit out of Kara France. Now he's in a little bit of an omoplata situation, and this is just happening so quickly in front of our eyes. Go right ahead. I'm so sorry to cut you off, sir.
No worries. It's so bizarre because that was the one move I noticed from his highlight reel, and I'm just like, that is seeing omoplatas in MMA is so satisfying just because I know how hard the move is, particularly once if you're gonna hit it, it's easier to do it early before the sweat really starts to take to take shape, and especially because I am actively following all the entanglements, and I'm unable to really speak and continue my thought. It looks like Royval might be trying to turn in for a takedown, but France able to maintain top pressure, gets into side control.
I like that MMA fighting said the exact same thing I did, which was that an illegal knee? He might have, but we're just continuing on. Yes, what you are seeing right now, and you mentioned the idea of having a omoplata as a highlight reel for an MMA fighter is odd. There's only like 2 finishes with an omoplata, one of which belongs to a friend of the show, Ben Saunders. It doesn't happen often. And my wife was looking at me and she just goes, is his arm going to be okay there? And yes, it is highly problematic to keep your arm there for an extended period of time. But if you do maneuver out of it and roll out a certain way, you don't tend to be in as bad of a trouble. The issue is you don't always have that choice. Sometimes you get stuck in the position, and there you are. We're going to switch over to Adam in just a second, but the pace here has been frantic. That has been one of the better ways to go ahead and categorize what I've seen here. And I know we're only 3 minutes into this fight thus far in, but so far, this has been my favorite fight of the telecast by and large.
Was that spinning back fist?
Yeah, I mean, listen, dude, we're just in the process of throwing whatever you got into this fight. And I think really what's going to come down is whoever the fuck is going to go down first. I was going to show you guys who was statistically picked by our fans to win this one, but I think it will espouse the exact same thought that you might be having at home, which is the following. It is fucking close. 55% for Kara France and 45% for Royval. And I think you could make the argument this could still go either way. As you are seeing Royval look for a guillotine here, the legs are closed. I cannot see if he has a solid bite in there. That might be a little loose. I don't know the squeeze on him, and he does give it up. So now he's going to be able to work from guard, and he is very easily pressed up against the cage and gets a sweep. He might be attacking this leg here. He reaps for a second, but Royval is just a split second too late. Kara France realized, I do not want to be any part of that. That is a very particular thing. And I will compliment our fans on this one. To say it is this close between 55 and 45%, y'all be correct.
He almost looked like he was going for a triangle there very briefly before getting the sweep, and that was incredibly exciting.
I think he was testing the waters with the closed guard, but I think he was doing that kind of isolation where you kind of grab on the inside of the wrist from around the elbow, and you see if you can maybe get a sweep from there. But I think these guys are moving so fast, they really can't even get a moment to think about what they're putting together here. Look at both of these guys just dropping continuous amount of bombs. There is no blocking any of these shots from either of these gentlemen. They are just taking it on the chin.
Yeah. Dude, how impressed are you guys with Royval?
I'm impressed with everybody involved in this fight, including the ref, who has done little to nothing.
Well, I mean, have you seen instances in this fight where other refs would have stepped in? I mean, it feels like a fairly just by the numbers, incredibly frantic and frenetic fight, but otherwise non-controversial.
No, I'm saying the ref deserves praise for just sitting there and being like, I got a front row seat to this. This is awesome. Thanks, everybody. Holy shit. Yes, Royval and Kara France deserve your applause. Dane Donovan chimes in and says, what a great fight. No fucking shit, man. Woo.
Do you think that there's ever a time where a coach, like in this situation, wants to just go, do you know how cool you look right now? Like, let's forget winning, forget losing. Just like, you guys look like you're in the Matrix or like Street Fighter.
They definitely go the Vince Vaughn approach of, you're so money you don't even know it. Like, that's what you get as a coach over on the side. Here's what I would tell you. I would be so, and I like to think that whenever I give advice to my friends for grappling, I usually have like a couple insights, even if I think they're perfect. This is one where I think I'd walk in the cage and go, dude, oh man, I just want you to know it's going great. Like, I wish you were winning more, but I'm loving this. Go out there and do more of that. And if you lose, like, it would really suck for us. And I know it's bad for business, but I'm fucking a fight fan and I enjoy this.
I would be interested to see if they're going to give any credence to, because I know the UFC Pride was better about respecting and judging submission attempts than the UFC is, and Royval really had a few solid ones almost locked in, like a few guillotines, the omoplata. Oh wow,
we're on a guillotine again.
Oh, that's deep.
This one's looking a little bit better. I think he's just going to lose. He is repositioning it though. This is looking way better. He does get the finish, man. Wow. Look at that.
Wow.
That was impressive, dude. Talk about a war coming in. I mean, listen, dude, getting into that guillotine right there is one of the most difficult aspects you could ever find yourself in a fight this close. But he was previewing it. He was telegraphing that earlier on in the fight. He was saying, hey, man, listen, I've got a good guillotine here. And I think you really have to respect that before it comes back to bite you in the ass.
And especially, like, I know I talked earlier about how hard it is to lock up the omoplata with how, like, quickly sweat starts to develop and, like, people get more slippery. It's a very friction-reliant position. But that guillotine, the way he set it up, he was fully in the air. He was holding on by arm strength and position of his legs alone, and it was pretty locked in before he even fell. And we're seeing the replay right here. And he had to reposition. Like, he had to give up a lot of that friction in the hopes of being able to find it again. There you see, he locks in the body triangle, which I didn't even notice. That was. Damn, that was you are so money you don't even know it.
Yeah, my goodness. I mean, and not because he's been on the According to What podcast, but like, holy hell, what we saw out of Brandon Royval. I mean, this is like career making matchups. Obviously, number 6 and number 13 respectively, as their positions in the division up to this point, up to them walking into the cage tonight. So now, I mean, quite soundly, Brandon Royval has cemented his place in the top 10 of that very division. So this is a big win for somebody that's pretty new to the UFC audience. Obviously, coming off of LFA. I mean, 2 back-to-back, impressive victories for Royval, and a tough guy in Kai Kara France that he pretty much dispatched. Fuck, man. This is I would love to see what's going to happen in the co and main event respectively. But I mean, if we're theoretically speaking, if there's 3 performance of the night bonuses, I would definitely like one to go to Brandon Royval.
I think that the next 2, like, we would have to see some historic stuff to really outshine that kind of performance from beginning to end of the fight. It was, both men were rocked, both were down, like they looked hobbled in the first round. And to pull off that kind of submission win, I know Dana loves a knockout more than anything, that's what he's looking for. But you can't deny that. You cannot deny what just happened. That I'm so happy I got to see that. Yeah, and you know what? I pay full price for the pay-per-view for it. Adam, $20. $20 for that. You cheapskate.
You're redeemed. You're absolutely redeemed.
Shut up. I actually stopped eating just to come back in and shut up. That does not excuse you. Listen, I love me some guillotines, and I'm trying to listen to him say this. And by the way, Brandon Royval in his post-fight interview with Anik says, "My dumbass got dropped twice." Like, that's hilarious. Also, when he was asking, he's like, "What kind of adjustments were you made?" He's like, "Dude, I didn't make shit for adjustments. I just made it like worse. Like, there's no real adjusting that. It's just trying to fucking finish this fucking move." So Royval, I think, is going to come away tonight a huge winner. I know that your friend, our friend, Adam, Vince Cachero just wrote out after the first round, not even with that finish, who obviously is going for Brandon. He just wrote out, "Give him the 50K already, dude. Just fucking give him fight of the night already."
Yeah. 100%. I mean, to have that come from Vince Cachero, who's been in a litany of wars himself pre-UFC. I mean, I would point out his fight with Ryan the Lion Lilly at CXF being, holy hell, that was a hell of a fight. So, I mean, to get Vince Cachero's kind of, feather in the cap, I think both Royval and Kai Kara France put an amazing performance.
All right, so we're coming up on the last 2 fights. We got the co-main and the main. Both of them are championship fights, so they will be both 5 rounds. I will say this. That last fight just was – it's going to stick with me, dude. I'm going to have a lot of fun actually going back and rewatching that first round just because I know he was joking and saying, like, my dumbass got caught twice, but you didn't stop moving. You kept moving. That's what makes that fight all that much more compelling. And I'll get to your comment in a second here, Joffrey, but I just love the fact that even recognizing the shot by Kai Kara France, he looked at it for a split second and said, "I feel this shot is going to be perfect, like the exact perfect time for a jumping guillotine." I will tell you, guillotines are very difficult to hit as is, let alone with a jumping guillotine. So, food for knowledge. Just to let you guys know this as well, this is a very interesting promo. They have spent some money on Khabib. And you know what's very interesting about it? I know we mentioned the bus incident for Conor McGregor with Khabib. But also very funny about this is Khabib's notoriety and prominence in the UFC to break that next level is due in part to Conor McGregor. So when you do see those people who are good shit talkers, other people benefit from them. So that's kind of why I went the Sugar Sean, or even tonight, if Paulo Costa beats Israel Adesanya, that's going to be the result of Izzy saying, I'm going to murder this man. I'm going to make him so embarrassing. I'm going to be so fast. I think sometimes the byproduct of good trash talk is, oh, I'm going to take this and thank you and thank you and bye, everybody. I'm more famous now. So I would say that was a byproduct of Khabib getting a huge win over Conor McGregor, which honestly a lot of us saw happening because Conor had been out of the regular fight game 2 to 3 years. I still think Khabib would beat him, a more active Conor McGregor, but I just felt like that fight was almost 2 years too late, where I was like, yeah, I would have liked that one a little bit earlier. But at the same point, Khabib's stock rose at the exact same time that it needed to in that moment.
I mean, like, for as much as I hate the way the controversy was covered and the fight that happened after the match, you know, Dylan Dennis getting kicked in the head, that image of Khabib like jumping with arms outstretched like a bird, it's like that in it, like with no context, is just, it's so cool. It's perfect. It really is. Like, if had he been wearing the hat, I think that's the perfect MMA picture. Like, change nothing.
No,
But
100%.
yeah,
100%. But I mean, for me, when I turned the corner with Khabib was actually the fight with Edson Barbosa. I mean, you might as well have called Khabib the Undertaker because he stole Barbosa's soul. The amount of takedowns that he hit on Barbosa, and Barbosa, one of the most fantastic strikers in all of MMA. That real kick knockout of Terry Edom, holy shit, that still plays on the UFC highlight reels to this day, right? But there was a point when you saw Barbosa's eyes, and there was nothing there. Like, there was not, like, he was defeated in a way that I don't think I've seen since, right? So I mean, this fight with Khabib and Gaethje, fucking hell, this is, woo, buddy. I mean, this is crazy. And you've got Gaethje, crazy as fuck. When he won the interim title, he literally was like, "Oh, what the fuck," and threw it down. On Rogan, he was just like, "I don't know what the fuck I did that for." Like, it's a nice belt, which I differ in opinion on that. But I digress. I mean, these are two crazy motherfuckers, and I can't wait for this. But big win for Royval.
So let's ask this. Obviously, Royval is going to get a lot of credit. I look forward to his post-presser tonight, so I'll tune in for that one a little bit later. While we're on the topic, though, Joffrey said, I like Dominic Reyes in the next fight. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you both, who do you have in this next one between Jan Blachowicz and one Dom Reyes? I'll start with Kevin.
You got to give it to the man who confidently walked into a UFC press room and said, I have a black belt in football. I'm a huge fan of Dominic Reyes. I think he beat John Jones. I know that's a controversial opinion to some. I think he got robbed. I would love to see him have the belt. I think Jan is an amazing opponent, a worthy opponent for this match. But yeah, I'm giving it to Reyes. I think he just showed up against the GOAT, and a lot of people argue that John wasn't John that fight. I don't know. I think Reyes just outpaced him in the beginning, and maybe it threw off some of his game plan. Maybe he was half of what he was, but still Reyes showed up to fight John Jones and looked damn good doing it, and I think he won. And that's more than a lot of people could say, unless he happened to hit you with 12-6 elbow.
Well, or you happen to drive by him while pregnant. So,
ooh, wasn't even going to touch it, but yeah.
He touched her, so at a certain point, you got to probably figure. I think it's fair game. Adam, what do you got for us?
I've got Dominic Reyes, 100%, and this one I'm not. This one I'm definitely pulling at the heartstrings. Now, there's statistics that will tell you, of course, just like my compatriot said earlier, that he went toe-to-toe with John Jones, and many say that he did win that fight. But just like Jeffrey said earlier in the chat, like Dominic Reyes for the win. I mean, this is a SoCal guy that's literally, I mean, he's so confident in his abilities that he forgoed having his coach, Joe Daddy Stevenson, MMA great, and it was like, I'm going to take my brothers to Abu Dhabi. That's how confident Dominic Reyes is in his abilities. And, I mean, much like John Jones, you know, the former lightweight or light heavyweight champion of the world, he comes from a family of beast athletes. So, I mean, Jan has to knock Reyes out in the first 3 rounds for him to come away with the gold. But in any other fashion, Dominic Reyes wins.
So we got a comment over here. This one comes from Names321, who writes, "This shit is weak. Wannabe wannabes." Which, by the way, there's no punctuation here. So it just literally looks like a really dumb alliteration put by somebody who's just struggling to try and seem important here. Also, the Names321. What the fuck is that, dude? Like, if you're going to pirate an account, at least have a clever one. I just like the fact that you didn't spend that much further than password 12345. Appreciate your time. Enjoy yourself in obscurity. All right, coming back to you guys. I just enjoy the fact that every once in a while we get people who are too poor to tune in for their own broadcasts that are looking for us to stream the fights, which always begs the question, how the fuck do people get around this? Because on a night like this is where the UFC is looking for the highest premiums. And for people who put up those channels that do put them up, they put them up for a fight and a half, and they do the God's best work in the world. But don't yell at people if they're not showing it.
I mean, if they maybe they were by wannabes, they were referring to the fact that my camera makes me look like a wannabe podcast host.
No, I can assure you, a lot of the times, people who come on Periscope and create a fake name are here for just 10 minutes, or not even 10 minutes. They'll be here for maybe a minute, and they just say some shit, and then they run away because they're trying to find a different stream. But the hard part is, one of our last episodes that we did this, we had somebody who was saying, like, nobody's watching this. And I was like, interesting. We have people watching on different channels. You're just watching on one. It's multi-streaming. And they kept saying that. I would be like, oh, all right, cool. I went to go look them up because I was like, oh, I'm going to block them now. So that'll make it fun. And they had 0 followers. And I was like, well, I feel like you have to actually have people following you to tell us that no one's watching this, because we actually have a few thousand people watching us. You have no people following you. So, whoa, yikes, your argument comes back real bad. So anyway, all right, so that's who we have for this main fight. It's a good time to tell you guys exactly who did come out on the head side on our poll. And it is, yes, a little bit of almost 2-to-1 action in terms of the results. So I'll start by asking Adam, who do you think is the upside of that 2-to-1 result?
Dominic Reyes.
And is that continuously from the pulling on the heartstrings, or do you feel that more people are familiar with his work?
He didn't know. He did enough against Jones to secure a victory. John Jones was lucky to walk out of the octagon with his title, which it ended up being Bumski's because he ended up relinquishing the title regardless. So, it's a zero-sum game for John Jones walking out. But again, Dominic Reyes has enough to beat Jan Blachowicz. Nothing against Jan. I'm a fan of the gentleman, but yes, 69%. Ooh, buddy.
69% for Dom Reyes and 31% for Jan. Coming in right now, though. Do me a favor, don't tell Jan that, because I see the focus in his face right now, and it's enough to not make me think I'm going to change my pick here of who I'm rooting for. But Jan looks like he's got his good game face on. The one thing that does worry me a little bit about Dom is just the following, which is, where is he mentally? And that is something that I kind of, when I saw him go through all of the errors and elements of grief, I said, I don't know if this dude is okay, because he went straight from, I won that fight, to, I don't know, to fuck you, John Jones. You're a guy who did this, to John Jones, it was a pleasure and an honor to work against you, my man. Oh, thank you so much for your time. So he definitely went through a different number of spaces, but I will tell you the one thing that I saw wilt a little bit in terms of how John Jones won that last fight with him, which in my personal opinion, I did see him on my scorecard ahead of John Jones. But I did think the one thing that he did maybe make a tactical error was it seemed like he let John Jones back into that fight. Just enough that makes you concerned as a fan who says, I think he's winning this. I think those later rounds became a little bit problematic in terms of momentum. And I can't tell you the scorecard right off the top of my head, but it did make me a little concerned where I said, yeah, I could see them handing it back to John Jones on this one. And that was very disappointing.
Well, I think just in Reyes' defense, it's his first time fighting for the belt. And I think that might add a lot, especially when the person you're fighting is general consensus the greatest mixed martial artist to ever live, unless like we're talking Fedor or like Mighty Mouse. That's the company he's in. And no, I don't know if everybody is as supremely confident as the persona they present, and I think that there's some leeway that's deserved there. But the conversation following that fight sparked such a national debate, a global debate about the way these fights are judged on like a deep level. That is the type of, I would say it was a bigger robbery than GSP Johnny Hendricks, for a lot of reasons. I can't speak to how he's been in interviews or his Twitter. I know he was like pretty jovial after the fight. I don't know if that waned. Jesus, Jan's rib cage kind of looks like it's trying to eat whoever's in front of him, and that is terrifying. I still have it with Reyes.
All right, that's fair. All right, well, Bruce Buffer is getting to the center of the octagon, which I guess brings us to reminding people. If you guys aren't following the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast, follow them right now. If you're not following According to Woods podcast, follow them. They're on all the major media platforms. I know that the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast comes out. What are you guys doing now? Like, is it weekly, bi-weekly? Where are you guys at?
We are doing 2 a week and releasing them. We have a rough schedule of like Wednesdays and Saturdays as to when you can expect them.
Very nice. Because I will say, I think I saw one of your latest updates on my phone come up to me. I think it was the one for Mason that just told me on a Saturday. And I was like, bro, I'm not listening to a podcast right now, but I'll make a note to listen to it later. So there's that. Obviously, our good friend Adam Woods is doing podcasts every day. I almost want to say I wanted to say that you're like the hour, whatever time I finish, that's when you start. But I also know, especially as you mentioned it here, you're like, I'm just going whenever someone's fucking schedule is open.
Yep. 100%. I mean, I'm dealing with fighters and pro wrestlers, which can be flaky. So nothing against that. But I agree with Dane. Let's go, Reyes. Let's go! So, yes.
Reyes is unbeaten in his book.
Reyes is unbeaten in my book. 100% Dane. That's I couldn't agree with you more. And Dane, I mean, I shoot me your social media because I want to follow you. You've got a pretty good insight.
We got 100%.
100%. I'm like Dane I've been in the comments with Dane, but I mean, kind of see him in this aspect of it. Like, that guy I want to be friends with.
I need a picture of his Undertaker one. I'm gonna go to Teespring, get that printed.
The only thing I'm a little concerned with right now is the way you started it off. Your voice almost said, "Hey, Dane, I'm gonna need your social security." Like the way you had like this weird ellipsis after you said social. I was like, you better say social media.
Social media or social security or social light. It would have been one of the 3.
So here we go. This is round 1 of 5 right now. You have Blackwitz in red trunks and Reyes in the black. So we've already mentioned on here, 69% of our followers believe that Dominic Reyes is the favorite here. So there are a few things that concern me. Number one, I think that he definitely wants to evade kind of like standing right in front of Yan, who did kind of stagger back. Did you guys just see that right there?
Yeah, it looked like he
Yes.
got kicked in the thigh.
Interesting. I can't tell if that was a weird off balance as a result of that kick, or if it was just him like being like
He might have slipped. He might have slipped in that puddle of Diego Sanchez that's still back there.
Ooh, nice overhand there. And you know what's nice? You did see Yan kind of eat that punch. He had a nice counter that Dom had to very quickly start to duck and dodge right afterwards. So off to a very solid start between these two gentlemen. And of course, I like the fact that you're looking at, what is this, the 1 and the 3, or is this the 1 in the, what should we call it, in the divisions?
What happened?
What number rank is Yan?
1 and 3.
Jan,
It is
Jan
okay.
is number 3, I believe, and then Reyes being 1.
Thank you. Sometimes I get confused for the mere fact that I don't know if DC is still ranked in the thing. I think after DC retired, they still had him in the rankings, and I was like, why?
Yeah, the UFC updates their rankings, like they update their website in terms of who's fighting. It's like right up until fight time, it'll be like this glyph or kind of a cardboard cutout.
So thus far in,
Yes, Uncle Ralph's credit card. Hell yes.
I just go to check UFC's fight rankings, and Frank Shamrock's still up there.
it's always great whenever you see somebody who's like, I never officially retired, so you really can't take me there. And then all of a sudden, Chael Sonnen's still on that list, and you go, who hasn't updated this? Like, normally at a different job, somebody would be fired for that sort of a thing. Ooh. By the way, I have been watching Third Coast Grappling, and it does look like there was a very solid armbar that I just saw right there from a young man. I'll get his name in just a second, but kudos to him. That was very solid. We've been trying to keep our eye on it, but the UFC has been the dominating nature of the evening in terms of excitement. And, I mean, Third Coast Grappling, we're still maybe a few matches away from the main event.
Shout out to Third Coast.
Yeah, very pleased that they're having an all women's division tonight come out. There's Kumite, 8 women, and I think they are probably now down to either their semifinals or potentially their finals. So we'll keep a listen and a lookout for that. But thus far in, I mean, Dom is being very economic with his strikes here. He's not overcommitting at all in the least.
And I mean, has Jan faced John Jones? Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, to me, I just think that Reyes fighting an economical fight. He knows what it is to be in a title fight, a 5-round war. That it could essentially go all 5 rounds, all 25 minutes. So I think it's best, and kind of lulling. At least what I'm seeing, lulling Jan into kind of a false sense of security. And then I think he's just going to turn up the heat as the rounds go later and later. That's just
I just checked, and he's never fought John Jones. His last loss was Thiago Santos way back at UFC Fight Night 145, like last February.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, he knows what it is. Oh, my gosh, look at the right side of Dom's ribs. Holy hell. I mean, the welts are pretty apparent now. So hopefully that doesn't play into the cardio aspect of Dominic Reyes. But, I mean, Jan has literally and figuratively left his mark on Reyes. But I still am going with Reyes for the win. Yeah. So,
yeah. I think Reyes looked a lot more timid, or like not timid, but so much as like reserved compared to his opener against Jones, where he was just headhunting from the bell.
I do say, I think you were alluding a little bit to this though, Adam, which is now that he's seen what championship rounds feel like, I think that does change a little bit of a fighter, especially somebody who's like, I lost it because I went 5 rounds, and now that I've been there, I know what I need to kind of do to secure that win. So I'm not going to overcommit. I'm not going to be that headhunter for those first 2 rounds when my cardio needs to be good for 25 minutes. So there is that. Dane Donovan says, send me your Facebook pages and I'll follow you guys. Well, look at that.
You're a good man, Donovan.
Good man, Dane, and Roth, and Kevin. You guys are awesome. And shout out to the guy with the newsboy cap. His name is Geely, which again is probably one of the worst movies ever made by recently. What is it? Entangled or Detangled Ben Affleck and J-Lo. So there's a cut man named Geely. So I don't know. That's weird. Shout out to Geely.
Brett Akamoto, I forget what he said. I think it was 10-9. He says Blazkowicz over Reyes for round 1. Is that general consensus?
I think so. I think very narrowly, yes.
Yeah, he does. He does look a lot different this time around. You know, I'm wondering where that's from. I feel like you like Raph earlier. You alluded to a sort of spiral state that he experienced after his loss to Jones, like sort of chronicled over social media. And even though we are fairly removed from that fight, I do wonder if the reservation we're seeing now is more I'm respecting how I felt in those last rounds, or I don't have that same supernatural black belt in football confidence that I had going into the fight with Jones.
I don't know, man. I think that one of the difficulties is Reyes just very, very subtly let Jan have that round. Like, it's a close round. Jan obviously has a mark that he can prove with it, which looks bad. But if we're just comparing the output, yeah, I think Dom is maybe holding it in a little bit more. I think he might have also absorbed a couple punches and got an idea of like, okay, here's what I need to make sure I avoid in most of these later rounds. So I think it's a little columns A, B, and C. But Jan is putting together some nice combinations on the inside each of the time they are exchanging.
No, 1,000%. And you know what? Especially due to the fact that, I mean, Jan's kicks to Reyes' side, right, is the right side of the body. If Reyes is playing the long game, right, it is absolutely imperative that Jan basically take away Reyes' gas tank, if that's the game plan. And by those shots to Reyes' side and continuing to attack that right side of Dominic Reyes, he might edge out a victory.
I like that. Right in response to Dom's series of hit a combination on the face that he was trying to get, and one was a kick that just left his hands a little exposed where Jan connected, staggered him back ever so slightly.
Okay. And now we're starting to see some fire out of Reyes. You know, the movement is a little bit more fluid, and there's a little bit more of a sense of urgency, at least in his movements. So, welcome back, Ross. TJ Kelly loves the haircut.
Thanks. I think that TJ is just announcing himself rather than pronouncing any kind of appreciation for my haircut, but I'll take it. I definitely got a lot of notes. I couldn't tell which I got more notes for. People who were entering our giveaway or people who were commenting about that they enjoy my hair so much more now. And I said, sure. And there were a couple people who wrote like RIP Corona hair. And I said, no, I get that. And it's understandable. It had some people who enjoyed it, but I was like, yo, I just don't want to deal with this shit. Like, this is fucking annoying. Like, I understood now, and having longer hair, I was like, I don't know how people could do this.
Yes.
It is so confusing to me because I'm not a person designed to have long hair. It's just not in the cards.
Have you ever gone long with the beard though?
Oh yeah, but not like Letterman
Gandalf.
long or like I'm in a metal band or ZZ Top long for the beard. It's usually just been pretty ridiculous. Ooh, Jan is putting on the pressure right now.
Wow.
Holy hell.
Wow.
That's what I was afraid of. That's what I was afraid of. Again, if it gets finished within the third round, within 3 rounds, it's going to be Jan. It's going to be Jan.
Jan is your new light heavyweight champion, everybody.
Holy shit.
Oh, fuck.
Apparently I got a lag. Fucking A.
I guess I saw that before you guys. I was wondering where
I saw there was word that something big was happening, but that was impressive. So talk about this, man. Dom, I don't think it was a result of having too conservative of a game or too respectful. I just think Jan was looking very, very, very dangerous here tonight. And I think that is one of the things that Dan Hubler was talking to us about earlier, which was don't put money on this one, because if you've got a good inclination that Jan is going to do it, great for you. But both of these guys have barometers that are very difficult to figure out for betting odds. And I applaud him for saying that. But my God, I knew he was looking mean and angry, and I thought that might play a factor. But those hands look downright vandalous.
Yeah. Fuck. And just the visual to see Dominic Reyes kind of on spaghetti legs. Holy fuck, man. That was a sight to see, because obviously he towers, over Jan quite soundly and over the cage quite soundly. But fuck, just to see him kind of wobble back like that and then Jan go for the kill. Fucking shout out to Jan Blachowicz, the new light heavyweight champion of the world, because that was I don't know what the game plan was, but if that was the game plan, fucking A. And Dane says, I have to ask, early stoppage?
No.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, no, the way he was getting hit, and we're feeling it at home. The ref is going to have an entirely different level of insight into the matter. Damn, you can't ask a guy to get hit by any more of those. That was. I love how we're all on the same page. It's like, no,
Did his nose get fucked up even more as a result of that? I'm looking at it right now, and I know it always had a little bit. It says, never mind, Reyes is still on the stool. Yeah, that's part of it. It looks like Dana White is pretty pissed. He doesn't have a belt to put on him. Oh, no.
What?
Why is there no belt in there?
No, he has a belt. He's a belt.
Let me see. I can't see the angle of him. It looked like he was signaling for somebody on the outside.
Oh well, I think I'm ahead, and he's got the belt. So,
wait, well, what the fuck was he signaling from there?
Yeah,
I don't know.
This does not fucking make sense, right? There's 2 title fights on this card. How do you not have a belt?
No, he's got.
Well, no, he's got the belt. We just had a little bit of a delay, and it looked like he was signaling, but I still don't know what
he didn't look like he had it in his hand, though. It looked like he was handed it off screen, like that someone passed it to him from behind him.
Yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got as well, Kev. Yeah, 100%. But how could you not fucking? You know the deal.
Is this one of those? Is this one of those things where like everyone wears the same belt and then they get it sent later? Like, because I feel like Corona, there's no way. But Jesus, do they only have one belt to give to both of these guys and then they walk off with it? Like,
hold on. We have a comment that is not in our chat, but that might be worth exploring. This one is the result. It says John Jones, who just responds, "Boo."
Is it terrible that all I can think about after this fight is anger that we're not going to see Jan Jones?
Yeah, 100%.
Because he looked so much bad. I know MMA math is sketchy because people can be different people months and weeks in between, but he looked so much better against Reyes than Jones did. And I'm just wondering how that matchup would happen. Ah, that's so cool. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Well, Jan has now gotten to the portion where he's speaking to his Polish fans, and there's a little bit of flexing, and John Anik shakes his hand. Apparently in Fight Island, there is no social distancing. Fuck that. I'm going to shake your hand. So, my God, what a powerful moment. It says so much talent in John Jones, man. Yes. Also problematic nature. Dom comes over to wish him well. That's very sportsmanlike of him. I imagine we will not be hearing from him tonight, if I'm taking a guess.
Yeah.
We'll probably have him go on over to the hospital directly and take care of that. Now he's flexing on over on the side, so good for him. I mean, an interesting thing, kids, this is the first time we have a new light heavyweight champion that was not DC or John Jones in 9 years.
9 years.
Yep.
9
and my
years.
wife is cheering because she could not be happier that it's somebody fucking else. And it says talent only and motivated John Jones. I don't know, man. It's hard to say. He was very dominant in what he was doing. The hard part, I think, is to also qualify steroids. Who knows?
Pico Rams, yeah. Yeah, fuck. This is, I mean, there hasn't been a light heavyweight champion not named John Jones in DC since Shogun.
Yeah.
Since Jones beat Shogun. Think about that. Let that simmer.
That's so wild. Again, it you know, I mean, it predates our shows. It's kind of funny to me where I just kind of think we've only ever known that in the time that we've been doing this as a show. So it says, oh, here we go. This will solve it. TJ Kelly writes, give everyone steroids. Problem solved. Well,
they tried that. It was Pride, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, but you know what? I think the thing we learned about Pride was not sustainable.
I mean, if the Yakuza ruin everything, yeah, but other than that.
I think what would have happened is, unlike the UFC where you could have a John Jones winning for 9 years, Pride would have proven to us that somebody who was a dominant champion would have had a good 3-year run, and they'd be like, that was the longest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Context is key, right?
Now, Dane, our favorite commenter, I need help parsing through this one because I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Sure.
Is he the Mask of the Red Death? Or is he the Raven?
Is he the
of
Raven?
UFC?
I was going to say the Raven because Nevermore, like he's never going to compete at light heavy again. Like, what are we talking here?
No, man. This feels like a very high school poetry class think piece where it's like John Jones is essentially the Edgar Allan Poe of MMA, and you go, okay, I'm going to fail you in this class.
John Jones is the Robert Frost of MMA.
It's still like sometimes people aren't meant to be the metaphor similar to the other. It's just like, no, he's just John Jones. To my recollection, Edgar Allan Poe never actually said oopsie daisy cocaine twice.
That is true. But theoretically speaking, all right, I'm going to Vitor Belfort for heavyweight champion, probably in ONE FC. That'll probably happen. But in terms of if you're going to put John Jones to an Edgar Allan Poe classic, I would say that to everybody in the light heavyweight division, he is the Mask of the Red Death.
TJ Kelly.
So here's the note that we have from Dane. It says, Edgar Allan Poe was a drunk. Poe would disappear for days at a time and found drunk in the street.
Okay.
Cool. We're talking about Edgar Allan Poe's extracurriculars, not just his poetry writing. Sure. I mean, there's a lot of people who are drunk. You could probably say circa 1999, that John Jones was the Robert Downey Jr. of MMA. And it would be like, oh, well, that story's going to change very quickly. So I don't know, man. You know what the weird part about that is? No one knows that reference. I can't verify that reference. I can't go back. Instead, you get people who give you verified accounts of like, well, my grandma's grandma told me that Edgar Allan Poe might have liked the booze. And it's like, yeah, everybody liked booze back then because they were going to fucking die. So probably. It'd be like, have a new like original thing to have a problem with. That's why for the longest time people were like, uh-oh, well, he's got a booze problem. It's like, you see what other shit they have to do? Yeah, everybody had a booze problem back then.
Yeah.
All right. The main event is coming up in just a minute. So I want to make sure we give you guys ample time to plug your podcasts. I'm going to go back over to Kevin. Kevin, what is coming up on your guys' show in a small amount of time? Like, what are we going to see next? What little things do you have surprised for us?
Well, we're planning an episode that's sure to get to be really good with our fans who are the most understanding about complex issues. We're going to be talking about Colby Covington and the sort of effect of the troll athlete in today's climate. You know, I'm sure everyone's going to love that one. But I'm more excited for we're going to have Chew Jitsu on the show next week, and I've been a huge fan of his since like around the time I started watching you, actually. So that's gonna be fun. Other than that, I've started also writing for Ace's Jiu-Jitsu blog. It's an up and coming blog that I've joined alongside my podcast husband, Kevin Gallagher. So feel free to check out my writing on that when it starts to go up. And we're just gonna be churning away, covering the events, taking the piss out of Raph every now and again, hoping he invites me back, even though I'm me. But yeah, Adam, what do you got?
Funny that you should ask, because continuing to the theme of October 11th, Bloodsport, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, I will be having next Saturday, Killer Kelly, who has made appearances for the NXT UK portion of the WWE. She's made appearances, in all types of indie sports, indie pro wrestling. So she'll be on. And then there's going to be a couple other ones that I'm still solidifying as of Saturday. So just check out According to Woods across the board on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, and Adam K. Woods on Twitter. And you'll see exactly what's going on. And so gracious of him to do, but I've even had one other than Josh Barnett himself retweet some of the podcasts. So huge shout out to Josh Barnett, and the man of the Grappling Hour, the man of behind the Verbal Type podcast. But I'd like to thank Rafa Smarza for giving both Kevin and I the platform to do this, because normally I'd be watching the Grappling Hour kind of iteration of a viewing party of a UFC, but I get to be on, and it has been an honor and a privilege to do this, not just with Ralph, but Kevin as well. So check out both of their podcasts. You're watching this, so you should probably already do it, but if you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe to whatever platform you're watching on. Yeah.
Good work, everybody. You plugged your shows. So here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I'm going to show you guys the poll result for this our main event between Paulo Costa, who is walking out, who chooses an opportune time to make sure he put on a cup, by the way. But I guess that's as good a time as it's going to be. He should have adjusted it, I would say, before making it his way on live television and doing that sort of thing. But good for him. You do you. TJ Kelly writes, how about John Jones is the Charlie Chaplin of MMA? Parenthetical, many faces. Listen, kids, I'm going to start putting a limit on how many times you can put mismanaged metaphors and similes and analogies in the comment section.
I love how this I accidentally started this by calling you the Walter Cronkite of of MMA media.
I want to be very clear, as much as I like it, not true. So as much as people want to go ahead and put that on blast, they should know better. And boo! Boo! Think about your metaphors here, kids. Anyway, Paulo Costa looking like he has cycled off nicely of whatever acai he was on.
Yeah, 100%.
So very pleased that this fight is coming up next. I've been waiting for this one. I think we've all been waiting for this one. It has been very, very highly anticipated from a number of people who, I don't know, man, they just seem to be very caught up in the antics of Izzy, except if you're Adam, who we learned tonight. By the way, did not know that going in, that was a guy that you put on the same level as Sugar Sean, because I was like, you know, after the last fight, I defended Sugar a little bit, and I just kind of said, guys, listen, I get it. The dude's going to say some dumb shit. But to put him on the same level as Izzy is kind of like, I don't think I can get on board with that. But I can understand if you don't like him as much. I just don't understand the why. We got to hear part of the why. And yet, here we are still watching a fight that is going to be the nice little appetizer to next month's intense violence smorgasbord here back at Fight Island.
No, 100%. And I mean, literally, Kevin started it. Ha, ha.
Oh, Dane, you cad, you.
No, so here's the thing. So both, what is it? Actually, Henry Cejudo, I'll include it. Henry Cejudo, Sean O'Malley, and Israel Adesanya is the perfect fighter, are the perfect fighters for kids that drink lean. That, they're the perfect, for Twitch streamers and SoundCloud rappers, they are your guys. And so to it, which I don't understand, but Eric Alcebron, the Cringe King, Henry Cejudo's coach, how does he become the head coach of Paulo Costa? Because Costa was damn in the damn jungle with Walid Ishmael, for the whole quarantine. So how does he get the nod to be the head coach? And I don't understand. But he's just as cringy as Cejudo, as Adesanya, as Sugar Sean, So all of them, they can go ahead and do a 4-way elimination on Fight Island, and I don't give a damn.
I'll tell you this much. I once saw Henry Cejudo come to the Tonight Show, and I got really excited because we don't always get wrestlers or jiu-jitsu stars or UFC fighters or just mixed martial artists, period. And he was coming on the show, and I was very oh, that's awesome. And I was in charge of checking out where people's seats are and kind of assigning them. So I had assigned his entourage, who at that time included Eric, and I could see them being a little rowdy, and they weren't 100% used to our protocols in the biz called show. And I just remember being they're kind of weird, but I don't hate them. It's kind of refreshing to have people who are just very green about, yeah, that's my friend. Do you guys not know Henry Cejudo? And you're he's literally telling audience members. And I recognize him and I go, okay. And there was a moment where he was trying to get backstage, and I was like, hey, man, we can't let you backstage. I was like, but we can arrange a photo. Is that what you're trying to do? And he's like, man, we really want to do a photo and blah, blah. I was like, cool. I was like, here's the condition. You have to come on my show. And he was just yeah, sure. And I was like, no, but here's the thing. If you don't come on the show, you don't get the photo. So you really better do it, or else I'm not going to send it to you. Anyway, long story short, he was wonderfully kind on the show, and he was a blast. And it was our first year of doing it. And he ended up being super nice, and I get it. And then all of a sudden you see the hard left being taken by him and Cejudo at Common Sense Street into the world's most annoying and cringiest things, and he was egging it on, being like, "Ooh, look at King Cridge over here. Look at that." And I go, "Oh, fuck. No, this is what we're going to have to deal with, right? Like, that's their brand.
Is it worse than Colby, though?
No, nobody's worse than Colby. Colby's the worst.
Worse than Colby.
Okay, so like, there's a wall he hasn't hit yet. Like, there's time to pull him back.
That's like 3 walls down the line. Doesn't make it a better wall.
He's Wile E. Coyote through 2 out of the 3 walls.
Very nice. I'm just going to tell you this. If you go to your insurance and go, I only hit the first wall, there were 3 more walls in front of it, your insurance is going to go, good job. I'm going to make you pay less now. It's still hitting a wall of significantly dumb shit. Colby just happens to do it in such a pronounced way that I think he's lost track of how to be a character that is literally subscribed to a political movement, which is not only absurd, but when people are like, he's racist, and you go, yeah, you're not wrong. Okay. And they go, well, no, he's not racist, because he was like, well, he has said the following. Lots of people say a lot of things. Sure. But yes, I do like this. It says both of them are off the reservation, and Colby is out of control. But that's the thing. I don't believe him. I just kind of look at him and say, I think you and I both know you were putting on a show. The sad part is it's a show that shows how many terrible people there are. They aren't availing themselves to me as fans that are smart in the fight game. They're availing themselves to me in a different arena that just happen to be fight fans, which might be more concerning for our demo.
You know what actually turned me off of MMA early, before I found jiu-jitsu and I really knew what it was, is I saw this news report of Sean Hannity making fun of Obama for his workout routine, and then it cut to you want to see what I do to work out, and then he was in a UFC gym and he was doing drills with the bag, and then he had Chuck Liddell on, and I was just like, this sounds like the worst thing ever. I want to not do that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, dude, we went pretty extreme as a sport, from going from human cockfighting to, hey, we're going to legitimize the sport, and then people being like, I'll never watch this again. And you go, oh, these 2 guys are going to fight each other. I'll be there on Thursday. We've gone through a number of different modes and elements. I would just tell you this. I would 100%, if you put on Izzy and maybe most of the other people, I'd be like, I'm interested to see how I'll fight. And I think that's part of the intrigue for this. So let's go ahead and take a moment to go ahead and look at the poll result for this final fight. I know that you guys want to know, so here we go. Here is how our Verbal Tap fans voted, and the results are Israel Adesanya at 68% versus Costa at 32%. Now, that may not even take into consideration the following, which is, oh my God, Paulo Costa has 87% accuracy in his strikes. So we're about to see this get underway. I obviously know where both of you stand. Actually, I just know where Adam stands. Kevin, before it starts, who do you have?
Give me Stylebender. I want Izzy to win. I want him to never lose. I love Paulo. I think he's a phenomenal fighter. His fight with Romero was so much better than Izzy's. It's not even funny. That's one of those all-time rewatchables. We just rewatched it, me and my buddy. And yeah, I love Izzy. I know, Adam, he's not your cup of tea. Give me your cup of tea then. I'll drink it for you.
Cup of tea. Let's say Daniel Cormier before DC, or Dan the Beast Severn. I'm going to the weeds with that one, but I mean, that's what I like. I like the wrestle heavy. I actually like Habib. Especially after the Edson Barbosa fight. I like the grapple heavy fighters. Now, of course, these knockouts are always going to be the thing that brings the boys to the yard, I guess, right? To quote Khalees.
Damn right.
But I like those wrestle heavies.
Raph, where are you coming in on this?
I am rooting for Izzy, obviously. I don't know that I would ever phrase something as brings all the boys to the yard in terms of anything mixed martial arts, but okay, if we need to make it colorful, that's fine. I do like Costa's kick. It does find a nice little mark on the chest of Israel Adesanya. Now, Costa has been very clear in saying that he wants to make sure he is going to be chasing down Izzy throughout the bulk of the fight. And there's good reason of it. Look at the size difference between the two. Izzy, I was telling somebody earlier this week, I would love to see him try to take Costa in the 4th round and use that striking to go ahead and do that, because he will have the advantage in terms of getting to those championship rounds. The issue is getting to that 4th round with Paulo Costa and hoping that you just do enough to mitigate that power that he has and the accuracy along with it.
No, agreed. And obviously, muscle takes oxygen, right? So,
he's pulling a McGregor.
What was it?
He just had his hands behind his head. I think I'm ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so as it goes later, I mean, the physique of Paulo Costa is probably going to be called into question and going to be exploited by Izzy. So, I mean, for Costa to win, it's almost like my call for the Reyes fight. You definitely have to finish it in 3. Otherwise, you take it into deep waters with Izzy. They're fucking stupid. I don't know how they centered that plan. You finish it with his build in 3 rounds. That's it. If it goes deeper than that, I'd be surprised if Costa comes out with the winner as the winner.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I think we saw that Costa dealt with the championship rounds, like 5-round fights, when he first fought Romero, better than Romero did, who certainly got more experience in those late rounds. But, Izzy's a different cat. So
just remember one thing. Yoel Romero is also 95 years old. So he is a phenomenal freak beast of a human being that the rules don't apply to him. All of those things when you're supposed to slow down and be like, rocking a wheelchair or basically just using a extended walker to get down any kind of building. I look at him and I go, oh my God, Paulo, you're not the same league as Yoel Romero, just in terms of being a brick of a human being. Paulo threw the kitchen sink at him, and Yoel's nice little switch on that kick right there by Izzy. Yeah. I just like the fact that even as he threw the entire sink at Yoel Romero, and Paulo looks at him like, what do I have to do to put him away? And Yoel just goes, I eat 5 more of these. It's fine. No problem, man.
Yeah, that's a freak show. I mean, what was it? The double tendon? He fucked up his eye. And I mean, almost like in a Wolverine type state of conditioning, he fucking heals.
Yeah.
Like within weeks.
So this is interesting because Izzy's just kind of trying to wave it off and show him like, yo, these aren't affecting me. I'm going to have to see the output in terms of the numbers, but you would have to imagine that Paulo's tried to initiate more of the action. And I think that's kind of what we did expect. We did expect that Paulo's going to be the one to try and instigate most of the movements, but that Izzy's going to try and counter off of a number of them. So again, that is very true to form. Dane Donovan writes, Israel is so fast.
Yeah.
Paulo Costa shot absorbed, 15 on the leg, and it looked like at one point he was even egging on those leg kicks to be like, nah, you can keep hitting me with those. That's fine, which wouldn't recommend for most people, very honestly.
No, for sure. Yeah. No, Paulo has to connect. I mean, he has to figure out the range of Izzy and connect, because I mean, already you're seeing the leg kicks of Izzy. Not to say that they're taking their toll, but again, enough of them in terms of accumulation, they're gonna fuck up Costa in a big way. So he has to figure out a way. I mean, this right here, round 2, is probably going to be the most crucial round of, if Paulo Costa is to win, he has to win this round.
Well, that's interesting because also a number of people on Twitter right now who are prominent MMA journalists and a couple fighters did seem to signal that was a 10-9 for Izzy.
Really?
Yeah.
I believe that.
It was close. I wasn't sure. I don't know. I
might be because of the movement and the countering with it. I think leg kicks are also a portion of it, but it is interesting to see how it will build up. It is something that I was kind of sitting there and I go, huh. All right. I mean, I definitely see Paulo pushing it. That can also sometimes be a kiss of death when a number of fighters look at it and say, Izzy won that one, and judges go, no, he did.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, Costa's lead leg almost looks like he got fucking cupping. Like he got cupping therapy.
Yeah. Damn.
Oof. I can't tell if he tried to plant his foot right there and just kind of casually was there. Now look at Izzy. He is chopping up that leg. I do think you are correct. I think it is starting to bother a little bit of Costa as he sees himself looking at the kind of that realm of there's only 316 to go in the second round. You've still got another 3 rounds after that.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see him. I know Izzy's takedown defense has been lauded to the moon and back, but it would be interesting to see Paulo back up that black belt a little bit and try to engage more with the ground.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Especially since standing might be an issue on that lead leg.
Yeah, dude. Anybody who's kicked for long enough will tell you that lead leg, you can start basing on it, but when you start resorting to tricks of like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and kick my leg? I'm going to leave it right open for you. That means that part of your leg is just eating it in a way that you go, I'm really hoping to counter off this.
Well, I mean, the judges are going to be looking at that thing for sure. It's just, it's right there.
Howard Shaw, thank you so much for joining us. I like this. He just said, ooh, I'm going to guess that's in response to something that we have mentioned in terms for Izzy or something that Izzy himself has done. So, yes, if Izzy could do me a solid, I said that he would probably be able to get it done in the 4th round, and I'd love for myself to be able to be correct on that one.
You would think that after that fucking Romero fight that Costa would hit some flying shit. Flying knee, flying Superman punch. Because that's what you need to fucking close in the fucking, the distance of Izzy, who's, I mean, the longer, lankier fighter, not by much, but it's definitely making a difference. So just to fucking disrupt the rhythm of Izzy, fucking just throw some fucking flying knee shit in there. That's what I would be calling.
So I know we talked a little bit about in terms of the output of Costa in that first round. So it seemed like more people were on the precision of Izzy. Oh,
yeah.
My God. Izzy now with a huge opportunity to end this. 2 rounds too early for me, and the referee is putting a stop to it, my friends, which means your and still champion, one Israel Stylebender Adesanya, who looked phenomenal here tonight.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And I mean,
so fast.
That was the thing. I figured that the second round was going to be crucial. I wanted it to be the other way. Obviously, I wanted it to go in the mode of Costa, but you know what? Israel showed his dominance. Who's there to stop him? That's the question that I want. I mean, if Paulo Costa could, I mean, who's there to stop Izzy?
Good question. Not John Jones, because that would have been a fun, unnecessary super fight to see. I'm going to go ahead and record this on both my Instagram and this at the exact same time, because I just had a thought that I want to make sure is commemorated. So we're going to do this all as one take.
So
here we go. Hold on. Hey, oh, God. There's something weird on this lens. Let me just clear that out real quick. Oh, Izzy's talking with Eric Albertine right now, and I think he's talking the appropriate amount of shit. And it does look like Paulo Costa's like, what the fuck just happened to me? All right.
Yeah.
Here's the thought that I have. You guys tell me immediately after what you think of it. But in doing that, what's up, Howard? See you later, bud. Good to see you. Hey, I just had a thought. Congratulations to Izzy for his knockout of one Paulo Costa. Do you think now would be a good time to get the white belt that Paulo threw at him and maybe give? You know what? Too early to say. Great fight though.
I think that would be a great gesture. That would be an absolute. Oh fuck, yeah. And again, that's what I wanted to see. Eric Alsaban, and fucking Izzy. Let's have them go 1-on-1, and then throw fucking, you know, Izzy, through fucking Colby in there, through Cejudo in there, and just fucking. I don't give a shit who fights to the death. I mean, send Gundam wings and shit like that. That's the only fucking anime reference that I know. But fuck, shit. Hate to be wrong. I was wrong. Izzy is so fucking dominant.
Let's be clear. I don't know that you were as wrong as you were maybe misplaced your anger for Izzy the person or brand as a result of the fighter, because I don't think you were saying he was a bad fighter. You don't want to root for him. So it's not wrong unless you're telling me right now, hey, Raph, I've had a change of heart. I actually think he's a pretty good guy, which I don't.
No, fuck no, never,
yeah.
Never.
Okay, well, I mean,
look at he's jaw jacking with anybody that'll fucking listen, which I don't know. Does Dana have a belt for him, or was that the one that did they take Izzy's belt to fucking give to Jan, which is what they did with DC, or not DC? What is it? They did with Connor, right? They gave.
Yeah.
They took
they gave someone else
to Connor.
Yeah, for the photo, yeah.
Well, kids, here's what I'm going to tell you. We're going to stick around to hear what they have to say. We'll have this. It says, How to Ruin Your Victory, starting Israel Adesanya. It says starting Jake Watson. It's supposed to be starring, not starting. These kids with their jokes. Proofread it, kids. All right, I'm going to hear what he has to say. I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Kevin, to give me just your overall thoughts. Who would you like to see Izzy take on next?
That's putting me on the spot. Just like, can we take Paulo Costa's body and stick Mighty Mouse's brain in it and maybe run it back? I don't want to disrespect Mr. Costa, but really, he was the biggest name in the division. He was the one that was going out making a name for himself. I think that fight that was hyped up with Jones, even though it's almost completely untenable now, unless Izzy wants to jump up to heavyweight, which let's do that. Let's have him completely just jump up to heavyweight, and let's see who they want to have him fight there. But yeah, I really don't know who I see Izzy fighting. That's realistically going to happen. So Adam, save me here.
Let me just give you a moment. I'm going to go to Adam in a second. But Izzy is calling for a 90% give your purse to your opponent if they make weight sort of claim over here. I'll give you more as I hear it. There's a moment that Izzy's giving the mic to somebody else, or at least the shine for it. Adam, I'm going to ask, who would you like to see him fight next, considering you'd like to see him get massacred?
Yeah, you know what? I actually want to see like a super fight. I know this might be fucking way into the weeds, but I mean, let's see fucking Holloway jump up some divisions and shit like that and face Izzy. I think that'd be a fun fight, just in terms of name recognition. And I think the fucking, the promos between them both would be fucking phenomenal as a fight fan. I don't think that anybody in any division right now, not named John Jones at heavyweight, gives Izzy a run for his money. He's too good, too young. I don't even think we've seen him at his peak. He's 30 years old, undefeated, and taking all the names. So, like, fuck, I don't know. But I think Holloway would be a good one. Obviously, different divisions or whatever, but that's I would like to see that fight.
I'm going to go ahead and say GSP.
We have a comment and it says, hold on, Plebland says hater.
100%.
And it says nobody is beating that guy. I
I
will
didn't
tell
say
you
anybody
this.
was beating him. I would just like to see fight.
This game, and he's probably got more. Okay, so Plebland, I want to go ahead and give you a little bit of due here. Ooh, that kick right up top from Izzy. I'm an Izzy fan, so I kind of hear you. Adam, he's venting. He is not saying he's not a bad fighter. I think clearly tonight we saw even more evidence of, wow, just look at him. So Izzy in his post-fight interview with Anik said, he had to prove to everybody, all those haters, including Adam, he had to prove to those haters, hey, man, listen, I know some of you thought that last fight I had was really, really boring, but he can do exciting. He can just remind you guys that he can get the finish. And it says, I know, Adam, like me, it's frustrating. I feel that with Jones. We'll come back to that in a second, Clever. But I will tell you this. So he ends by saying, and this is very interesting, he was saying if he beats, not him, but the person I'm talking about in just a second, is he said, if Jared Kennier beats Robert Whittaker, he will be next in line. So he basically put the criteria for who he would like to see and fight next. And I thought that's pretty interesting, especially coming from the top of the division now, not only calling a shot, but saying, hey, listen, I've got my eye on you. I'd love to give you a shot. And you have to earn it by being Bobby Knuckles, which is not an easy day at the park. But man, I really enjoyed that. And he ended his presser interview with John Anik by saying, and shout out to the puppy, which I believe pertains to my puppy. However, we do have a new puppy who made their, I guess, internet television debut here tonight with the Woods family. So I would say maybe he was just shouting out your puppy, Adam.
Yes. This one here is none other than Pugsley fucking Woods. Because I just thought it was funny. But oftentimes, especially training a puppy, a pug one at that, I thought, I'm saying fucking way more than I should. So he responded to it. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Pugsley, Fuggin Woods. So there's Pugsley, you guys. And I am definitely a part of the hashtag Pug Life. So there's that. Oh,
that's pretty adorable. Listen, dude, we can kind of forgive you for your unnatural hate of Adesanya, but I do want to point this out. It says, put 10 pounds on Khabib and maybe he's got a chance. Ooh, I don't know. That's kind of interesting because Khabib would really try to out-wrestle him and use that cage. And at the same point, there is a dance celebration that's happening in the back. It is essentially someone stuck in a GIF. That's what it looks like, the dance celebration for one Izzy Adesanya. Good for him.
It is finally starting to invade the real world.
Dane Donovan says, I'm not a big fan of Israel's antics. He humped Costa. Yeah, dude, I mean, here's the thing. Costa was talking all sorts of trash as well. Like, I think both of them were upholding their responsibility to promote the fight. I just think between the two of them, Costa sounded like an idiot. So there is that. Dane Donovan also says, cute pug, man, so you do win some points back. Here's the interesting thing about your Khabib proposition that I'll just acknowledge right now. Izzy's hands and kicks would be interesting to look at. And this is, again, a theoretical because you said put 10 pounds on Khabib with a wrestler who likes to grind and use the cage. So for that, I don't know. And I think that Khabib's striking has made inroads over the years, but that is not what he is known for. If you see the Israel Adesanya that we saw here tonight with even a Khabib with 10 extra pounds, I don't know that I like that one because I don't know that anybody has kept that distance on Khabib in a way that keeps them that safe. But I appreciate the prompt. I think it is very good. It says, I'm a wrestling coach. I like that matchup. Well, nobody asked your credentials. I'm sure you like that matchup. Most wrestling coaches have a huge appreciation for what it is that Khabib does. However, if you're talking wrestling matchups, think about this. Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje.
Ooh.
Now, both of those guys provide interesting things for Khabib. And I think part of it is their wrestling bases that make them not look lost in that realm. I think Khabib's wrestling is going to be a huge component for Justin Gaethje, but I think the bigger component is violence. Justin Gaethje seems to respond to violence in a way that I think is very exciting for that fight. So I would love to see him do that. You're right. Some lay and pray. Yeah, no lay and pray. I don't know exactly 100% what you mean by that, but sure, let's just agree to it on the base.
Real quick, now that this is only just occurring to me, but is it too early? I know we're trying to move away from the whole super fight, go grab belts, champ stuff, but is it too early to say, let's see Jan and Izzy go at it?
I don't need to see that. I don't need to see that, and I'll tell you why in a second. But first, let me address this. It says, do you think Justin is washed? I don't know. I don't have enough evidence to say that he is. If you look at his fight with one Tony Ferguson, I don't think so, man. That dude could be a huge spoiler in that. Again, getting even Michael Chandler as a backup, though, to me, just says, man, talk about the showcase division of the UFC right now. That welterweight division has just gotten that much more interesting. I'm sorry, wrong division, but lightweight. But what I'm more so impressed though, it says would Kamaru has a shot versus Izzy. No, I don't think so. I'll open this up to Adam. You seem to have a visceral reaction to that one.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, after yes, Usman won his last fight, but I mean, it wasn't anything that you would be able to sell on a pay-per-view. It wasn't anything that was going to make, highlight reels, right? It wasn't gonna do anything to move the needle, right? So I think Kamaru and Izzy, and especially the fact that they're both Nigerian, I don't think either man are going to be interested in engaging in that way with each other. But I think Izzy, regardless of my personal feelings about Izzy, which again will probably be echoed in my feelings of Kamaru Usman, to be honest with you, I just don't see that Kamaru has Izzy's number. And I don't think of anybody in his division or maybe a division above or below him that could really test Izzy at this point. I think he's going to go on a John Jones-like run. The only thing that worries me is the fact that he's so good at this stage of the game that he might not have durable or worthy or eye-catching opponents to that elk. So he might be, even though look, we've got Thiago Santos. Izzy goes right through him. No, I'm sorry. That's lightweight. Never mind. I looked at the wrong thing. But there, at Izzy's division and a division above or below, Izzy takes them all. Izzy's got the right combination of skill, power, tenacity, everything that he runs through everyone, and he does it. I mean, he didn't look too much different when he entered the cage than when he left the octagon. So there isn't anybody, unless Izzy fucks up, I mean, royally, in the way that maybe Anderson Silva did with Chris Weidman, the first fight. Izzy essentially beats himself. But I don't see anybody in, again, 3 divisions, one above, one below, and the one that, Izzy has essentially cemented himself as a champion of having Izzy's number at this juncture.
2 things. First, let's come back to this little comment that says, yeah, Jones comes back down versus Izzy. That's the fight. I'm interested to see it. I don't know that anybody else is certain that's going to happen, especially with John Jones moving up to the bigger boy division. That may have some lasting sort of issues for John Jones in terms of a cut or trying to make some sort of weird super fight. But It's not going to be for lack of trying on Izzy's part or lack of excuses for John Jones, who's going to run out of his Andre Galvo-ish tactics of prove it. And Izzy's like, I mean, and this, and I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I don't have as many years as you, but it's still pretty good. And scene. But I would tell you this, Adam, it's very hard to look at you with the dog in hand and not think that you're some sort of James Bond villain right now. So it does have a little element of, as you're explaining your answer to all of these questions, when you're just kind of sitting there being like, yes, I know. It would be a shame if something were to happen to Israel Adesanya. So I've been very entertained by that. Well, listen, I want to be respectful of everybody's time here real quick. So I want to go ahead and see if you guys have any final thoughts and or impressions. I'll go ahead and start on over with you, Adam Woods.
Yo, $50,000 goes to Brandon Royval. I don't know how you could justify anything but. Also, an extra $50,000 goes to Israel Adesanya. That was a phenomenal performance. And I would say that's it. The top three, right? Royval, Jan Blachowicz, and Israel Adesanya. If we're doing 3 performance bonuses, look no further than the top 3 fights on the card. And that's no disparagement for anybody else who fought on this card. But again, the performances in terms of what we're going to be talking about Sunday, Monday morning, into the next iteration of Fight Island next Saturday, we're going to be talking about those 3 fights. So those 3 and those 3 winners of such fights are the ones that are going to be making the rounds to Luke Thomas and Ariel Hawani and DC's show, and they're pretty much going to be saturated with your MMA kind of wherever you follow MMA, whether it be YouTube, social media, what have you. You're going to be inundated by Royval, Jan Blachowicz, and Israel Adesanya. There's no ways about it. So those 3 should be, I guess, awarded handsomely with that extra $50,000. That is my take.
Go on over to Kevin.
I mean, what more is there to say? Adam basically codified my exact thoughts for the night. I think I know people are going to make the case for Israel as fight of the night because of the storyline. The buildup was all there. He is why we're tuning into this fight. And Jan, the title, everyone cares about the title, but people forget that the fights that happen on the undercard and the prelims, they are what build the characters that eventually grow into the championship contenders. And more often than not, we look back on them with more fondness than some title fights. So I agree. That guillotine and the effort that led up to it absolutely won the night for me.
All right, kids. Listen, we've had a fun night. I'm so glad that you guys were able to join us. I want to go ahead and make sure that you guys are following them. Go give them your love. Go give them your support. You can follow them at the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. That is Kevin with also Kevin, which is always weird to think about every time I have to pronounce it. But yes, and check out their latest episode with Mason Fowler. And of course, according to Woods, Adam Woods is continuing to put on great interviews with basically everybody who's fighting on Bloodsport. He should be getting paid for the amount of plugs that he's done on this episode. If he is, great. If he's not, he should be. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, follow both of them. Check out their shows. They are consistently updating. We're getting 2 times a week with the Jiu-Jitsu Times and essentially daily at this point with our good friend, according to Woods. I'm going to go ahead and close this up. I'll say bye to both of you off air, but my thanks to both Kevin and Adam. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and start to say a few words just to remind you guys, we'll be back next week. We'll have some interviews. I don't know with who. We'll figure that out as we go along. But I want to tell you guys a couple things. One, give some love to our friends over at NogiBJJGear.com. Use the promotional code GRAPPLINGHOUR15 to save 15% off of whatever you put in the cart. And also give some love to our friends over at DodgyCollective.com. we will have Derek Garza on the next episode of Verbal Tap, and we'll talk about these fights on there with Kim and Kevin, and we'll figure out who won the latest installment of Over Under Kevin. That is going to do it for us here over at the Grappling Hour. Oh, one last thing. Go Lakers. They will be returning to the NBA Finals. So as much as I would love to celebrate that and get super excited, I just want to remind you guys, a certain guy who wore the numbers 8 and 24 would say, job's not done. So we'll see you guys for that. My thanks to all of you for tuning in. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats eventually.